Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is the Blade Breaker's Daughters in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 81, Shay's Birthday. The trip back to the monastery was rather uneventful for the students of the Officers' Academy, who spent their time chatting among themselves as they traveled together. Turns out, since there wasn't a rush like last time, the warp mages didn't have to send them along with magic, which meant they weren't bothering wasting the effort of getting them back quickly. Thankfully, the Gonrils were more than happy to provide the students and professors with horses for their return, not that Holst was able to see them off since he was still recovering from his food poisoning. Speaking of, are we sure B isn't dead? Happy asked, glancing at the slumped-over brawler who was slung over Byleth's horse. He's still making noises, so he's still alive. Ah, to see someone so normally full of vigor laid low because of a mushroom. It should have been I who ingested the poison. Constance mourned, prompting a concerned look from Laurence. Are you certain this behavior is normal for Constance? As normal as it can be for Coco, Happy answered. Having a sunny disposition means something completely different for her. Yes, I noticed. Still, it is quite alarming. To think someone could have such enormous changes in personality just based on sunlight. Perhaps she wouldn't be a good marriage candidate. My life is already a burden upon others, there is no need for it to be a burden upon your house as well. Hey, Lolo, either keep your foot in your mouth or your head up your ass, don't do both at once, Happy requested, it's gross. Wah, I was merely considering my future prospects, Laurence attempted to defend himself, a peerless mage from a noble house would be an excellent match. Blah blah blah, keep the pompous bullshit down or I'll... Hey, no fighting. Shay called out from her place in the procession. Happy, no threatening Laurence, and Laurence, don't try to flirt with Constance, she's clearly taken. She is? By whom? Happy did her best not to sigh, though she did feel her face warm up a little. It's fine, Chester. I'm sure Coco will give him a piece of her mind when we get back to some shade. Humph, well, regardless, I give whoever courts Constance my well wishes. If she truly wishes to restore her house, then she will require all the assistance she can get. Sometimes I don't know if you're a nice dude or not, Lolo, Happy muttered. Speaking of being taken, I heard you're going with someone to the ball, Mercedes mentioned, riding close to Shay. I don't suppose you'll need help with your makeup. Eh? Why would I wear makeup? Oh, come now Shay, it's a ball. Of course you should make sure to get ready for it. Huh, yeah, you know what, sure, Hilda is already helping me with getting dressed. Oh. That got Mercedes's attention. Hilda, do you want to help me make sure Shay is ready for the ball? Oh, sure. Can I join in? Dorothea asked as she held on to Edelgard. The young songstress didn't want to fall off the horse, so the only real solution was holding her highness around her waist. The princess, meanwhile, was doing her best to avoid getting flustered as she held onto the reins. Not that she had much luck when her gaze met Byleth's for a moment, only for the professor to give her a thumbs up. We'd be glad to have you. Hilda called out, grinning over at the lucky songstress. You three do know the ball isn't till next month, right? Shay asked, though she didn't get an answer as the fancier ladies started chatting. Sighing, Shay focused back on riding, before noting that they were about to arrive at Garreg Mach. And it also seemed like someone was waiting for them. Oh, hey Dad. Standing by the gates leading to Garreg Mach, Geralt grinned, waving at his daughters as the two approached him. Hey there kids, Geralt greeted, before handing a box to Shay. Here you go, happy birthday. A moment of silence dropped over the students as the words he said register. It's not her birthday, Byleth cut in, frowning. You're early this year. It's on the 12th. It is? Damn it, I overcorrected, Geralt muttered, looking annoyed. Ah, don't worry Dad, I don't mind, Shay responded, opening the box and finding some beast repellent inside. Thanks. And then she immediately extended a hand out to Byleth as if expecting something. You're lucky I brought it just in case, Byleth muttered, before fishing in her pocket and brought out a necklace. One that had a very crudely designed horse hanging from it. Oh, did you make this? I gave the blacksmith the design for the mold. Huh. You know what, I'm not surprised. Byleth paused for a second, as though listening to something, then frowned. What is that supposed to mean? It means it's a really cute, thoughtful gift. Thank you. You're welcome. Pardon my interruption, Professor, but didn't you just say it wasn't Shay's birthday? Lawrence asked. I did. I tend to bring her an extra gift because Pa, Gerald always forgets. It's a tradition. Yup. I get a gift from her on my actual birthday, and another when Dad gives me his. Shay explained. Why exactly is that? I don't want Gerald to feel left out. Gerald sighed. I'm right here, kid. You already knew. Yeah, I did. He sighed again. Well, how'd it go with the visiting Amirans? Pretty good. Shay answered with a grin. I went up against this guy called the Undefeated and sent him running. Oh really now? Gerald asked, already planning to get the real story from Byleth later. How about you tell me about that over your birthday dinner? Sweet. Hey, do I get to drink beer this time? I'm the older sister now, so I think I should be allowed to. Oh, you're still doing that? Nah, sorry, you're part of the Alliance class so you can't drink by Alliance standards. I can't? Wait, what's the drinking age for the Alliance? Good question. And with that, Gerald turned and walked away. Hey. Don't walk off. Kman, you should know the answer to that. Shay protested as she followed him from atop her horse, who seemed unbothered by all the commotion. So, just to make sure, her birthday is not for another couple of days, correct? Lysithea asked Byleth. Yeah, so there's no rush. It's not like I was going to be in a rush, Lysithea responded, which was a complete lie since the present she had purchased hadn't arrived yet. Byleth gave her a small thumbs up. Good luck. I don't need luck, but thank you though. When it came to her birthday proper, Shay grinned widely at the sight of her sister standing by her door, a wrapped package in her hands. Here you go dash. Before she could finish, Shay snatched it out of her hands and began to open it. Thanks. Shay said with a grin, before finally managing to take off the parchment wrapping. Though once she did, Shay could only stare at the book she had in her hand, its purple cover and the symbol on the front making it quite obvious what she was looking at. Volume 4 of the Magic Primer. Took a bit, but I managed to find it, Byleth said, a small smile on her face. Wrapping her arms around her sister, Shay easily lifted her up in a hug. Thank you, bye. Let go of me? Nope, this is my privilege as the big sister. Shay replied, grinning as she carried her sister towards the courtyard. Now come on, I'll get you to your class. I'm pretty sure we'd be faster if I walked. Nope, I think this works just fine. Shay responded, amusement evident in her voice as she walked towards the classrooms. Byleth felt her face heat up a bit as the students began to watch the two, though she didn't bother to break her sister's grip just yet. She could have some fun, even if Byleth was going to get revenge for it later. What are you even doing? Emily asked, staring in disbelief at the two. I'm thanking Bai for the gift she gave me. Shay declared, not noticing how Byleth kept her expression studiously neutral when she noticed the potential infiltrator. Right, I'm not getting involved, Emily decided, heading off to the Golden Deer classroom while some of her classmates stopped to stare. Shay, I don't think it's appropriate to be carrying around a professor, Lawrence pointed out, though he sounded a little unsure. Nah, it's fine. It's my duty as the big sister to carry Bai. Shay declared. I see. I suppose I don't really have the context for commoner traditions. Yeah, that's not a commoner tradition, Leonie commented, those two are just weird. I don't know about that, Raphael said, I carried Maya around all the time when she asked for it. Really? Maybe it's a sibling thing. Hey Ignatz, you have an older brother, right? Does he ever carry you? No, not that I, actually, I think he did lift me on his shoulders one time at a festival when I was young. Guess it is a sibling thing then. Wonder if it's the same for noble siblings. Hey Hilda, did Holst ever carry you around? All the time, duh. Heck, Balti carried me a few times too, she said, pointing her thumb back at the tall student. Ha, that's right. You know, I probably could still carry you. Yeah, no, don't try. I absolutely refuse. Yes, while that may be allowable between siblings, I highly doubt it would be appropriate for a man of your standing to be carrying a noblewoman like Hilda, Lawrence commented. Lawrence, you know I used to be a noble, right? You were. Hey, that's not important right now, Leonie interrupted. The important thing here is finding out who else has siblings and if this carrying thing really is consistent for everybody. I suppose that is the topic at hand. True, Lawrence admitted, I may have siblings, but I have never done such a thing. Perhaps it would help me form a better relationship with them. Well, as an only child, I find this topic riveting, but we did have something planned, didn't we? Claude asked, giving his class a grin. And, not that I mind you being here teach, but don't you have a class to go to? Tell Shay to let go of me. At her response, Claude glanced at Shay. Fine. After she was set down, Byleth smoothed out her clothes, before nodding to the golden deer and heading off to her class, prompting a pout from Shay. Feh. I could have kept carrying her. I'm sure you could carry teach all day, Shay, but that would get in the way of our plans. Claude said with a grin, looping an arm over Shay's shoulders as he led her into the classroom. For you see, unlike those black eagles, we actually bothered to remember when birthdays happen. I mean, to be fair, Byleth doesn't really bring up her own birthday often, Shay pointed out, defending the other house, before perking up. So, what do you have in store for me? Why, just a simple little thing, Claude replied, before gesturing to a table where a bunch of presents were being lined up by their Almiran classmate. Thanks again, Cyril. I only did it cause Lady Rhea said I should try to get along with you guys more. You did ask Professor Manuela for permission to do this, right? Of course. What are you guys doing? Came the voice of said professor, looking in at her rearranged class. You do know we still have class today, right? Of course we do, Professor, but you see, I actually need your help with something, Claude said, sidling up to their professor. I might have accidentally brought some Almiran booze from when we stayed in the locket, so I was wondering if you could help me safely dispose of it. Ah, what, you're asking her but not me? Balthus asked, frowning. Well, I suppose I should make sure that's not in the hands of any of the students, Manuela replied, staring at the bottle of amber liquid before simply taking it from Claude. Fine, you have until I return to have your little party. Your work is as appreciated as always, Professor. Claude called out as she left, a clear grin on his face. She's not coming back. Oh, she definitely isn't, Hilda agreed, before pulling Shay over to the table. Now come on, Shay. You'd better open my gift first. Ha. Okay, let's see what you guys got me. Shay agreed, happily picking up the present Hilda indicated and getting right to work in seeing just what her classmates decided to get for her. Said present being a resin bottle full of flowers. Oh, this looks pretty. Glad you like it, Hilda said, smiling as Shay looked over the bottle. It took a lot of effort to make, so you better appreciate it. I will. Shay said, setting it down as she reached for the next present, and finding a rose brooch waiting for her. Heh, pretty easy to guess who this is from. Of course, my magnificence shines through even my gifts. Lawrence stated, quite proud of himself. Well, it's pretty, I'll give you that, Shay responded, opening the next present and, finding a ticket? It's for my family's inn. Feel free to stop by and stay for free when you want to. Raphael said with a big smile. Thanks, big guy. I'll make sure to come one day. Shay replied, giving him a thumbs up. Looking forward to it. As she pocketed the tickets, she grabbed the next box. Ah, here I was hoping you'd end up saving the best for last, Claude said, mock disappointment in his voice. PFT, well guess I still am, Shay teased, opening the box and finding a jar in it. What is it? Poison, he answered, getting everyone to stare at him. Shay in particular had a very flat, unimpressed look directed towards him. Heh, what, did you actually believe that? he asked, a grin on his face. I might make poisons, but I'm not going to give one as a gift to someone. Fun fact, there are some poisons that can actually be used to make a medicinal salve, which is what I actually gave you. You gotta work on your sense of humor, buddy. Yeah, too soon, Claude, Hilda commented. Ah, yeah, well, that is actually a medicinal salve. A small amount should help with sore muscles while a bit more can do a lot for scrapes and small wounds. Huh, that is actually pretty nice, Shay admitted. Thanks, Claude. Though I'm getting you a joke book whenever your birthday comes up. It already passed. For the next one then. Setting the salve down gently, she grabbed the next present, and found a bottle inside. It's an amber sweetener, Lysithea explained at Shay's confused look. It's quite tasty when you want a dish to be a bit sweeter. You mean I can pour this on stuff and make it taste better? Yes. Lysithea let out a small squeak as she got hugged. What? Here, I thought the food here wouldn't get any better. Shay said, grinning as she pulled back from the hug as she looked at the bottle. Jay, just make sure not to waste it. It's quite expensive. Geez, guess the little lady is winning so far, Balthus remarked with a grin. It's not a competition. Sure it isn't. Letting out an amused huff at her classmate's antics, Shay grabbed the next gift, which was a rolled-up parchment which had a rather simple drawing of Rhea on it. Lady Rhea said I should give you something I think you would like, Cyril explained. Ah, thanks Cyril. It looks great Cyril, I didn't know you liked drawing, Ignatz commented, getting the Almiran to shrug. Heh, well I'll make sure to take care of it, Shay said, smiling as she grabbed the next gift. This one being an actually labeled medicine. After what happened to your sister and Leonie I figured you should have this whenever you actually do go drinking, Balthus explained with a grin, trust me, it works wonders. Is there any reason why you didn't give Byleth or me this when we were sick? Leonie asked. I was running low on funds at the time, Balthus responded, getting Leonie to huff. PFT, well I'll make sure to remember this when I can. With that, Shay grabbed one of the last two gifts, this one being from Leonie, which happened to be a bracelet with a charm that looked like an arrowhead. A good luck charm from yours truly, Leonie said with a smile, made one for Byleth and the captain too, but I figured you should get yours first. Matching charms sound great. Thanks Leonie. I guess that only leaves my gift, Ignatz noted, letting out a nervous laugh. No need to feel nervous Ignatz, Shay reassured, grabbing the wrapped-up gift, and finding a painting of her and her family. There she was, pulling Byleth into a hug as Gerald stood close behind them. I hope it looks alright, I was mostly going off of simple models, and Ignatz went quiet. Shay hugged him, pulling him in tightly. Thank you, Ignatz. I'm glad you like it, Ignatz said, blushing a bit as she broke the hug. Of course I do. I'm sure the others will love it when I show it to them. You know, you'd probably make a killing as a painter. Oh, that's kind of you to say, but it's just a hobby, Ignatz responded. Hey, Ignatz, could I learn to draw as well as you? Cyril asked, looking at the portrait. Oh, I suppose. Did you want some lessons? It would be nice to draw something like that for Lady Rhea, Cyril admitted. Guess that means Ignatz won, Claude remarked with a smirk. Not only did you make Shay emotional, but you even got our new classmate interested. It's still not a competition. Lysithea complained. Letting out an annoyed huff, Emily looked away from her classmates as she sat by herself. She couldn't understand this tradition of gift-giving these people did, and honestly, she didn't care to learn. Hearing the chair next to her get pulled out, she glanced to see Shay sitting next to her. Hey there. I don't do presents, Emily said before Shay could speak further. Yeah, I got the feeling, Shay replied, not bothered. Still doesn't mean you have to sit out of everything. I'm just thinking about something, Emily said, her mind drifting back to how Byleth had called the Golden Deer her friends. Well, want to talk about it? I'd rather not, Emily admitted. Well, in that case, we won't. That being said, we're still going to hang out, Shay said with a smile as she grabbed Emily's hand, so come on, all our friends are waiting. Our. Yeah? I mean, unless I got it wrong, I'm pretty sure they're your friends. Staying quiet, she got up, and followed Shay to where the classmates were still talking. Well, arguing and teasing more than just chatting. Still, maybe Professor Byleth wasn't wrong. Byleth watched from a distance as her sister happily pulled her friends along to the dining hall, where her big birthday feast was about to take place. In particular, she could see Shay was leading Emily by the wrist, chatting happily back at the shorter girl as a look of exasperation showed on the possible infiltrator's face. Exasperation, and some affection that was obvious to see. You know she is likely a danger to Shay if your suspicions are correct, Suthies pointed out, floating beside her. I know. I know that. You recall how the other infiltrators targeted Shay in particular, do you not? They wanted her for some foul purpose. What is to say Emily is not attempting to get close to her for a similar end? I don't think she is. She's not that good at manipulation. She's been running errands for Hilda for a while. Unless that is a deception. Yeah, but I don't know for sure. Suthies sighed. You know there is more evidence for it than against. And the princess you favor thought your ideas had validity. She did. Back in Fodlan's locket, Edelgard hadn't denied the idea that Emily might be an infiltrator like Tamash. What she pointed out was that there wasn't definitive proof. That if they made a false accusation, then they could potentially destroy Emily's life. That it would be better to wait, see, and make sure, and not act hastily. And if she were being honest, Byleth didn't really want to accuse Emily. She was her student, even if she wasn't in her class now. Do you really think you may be wrong, or are you allowing your sympathy for this girl to override your common sense? Suthies asked, her voice simply logical, not argumentative. I'm leaving her alone because I don't want to be right. Because she's Shay's friend. And I know that's stupid of me. I don't want to hurt her. Shay, or Emily. Because, while we do not know the mechanics of how these infiltrators operate, we know that if there ever was a real Emily Korsh, she is more than likely dead, so this girl could take her place. Yeah, that's probably true. And, a part of me does think if there was a real one, she deserves some kind of justice. But I don't know if that's true. And I don't want to hurt anyone just for a maybe. Then I will merely add that you should remember where you found that dark dagger. A person does not draw a blade if they do not intend to use it. And that was another question. Why would she draw a weapon like that down there? The possibilities were unpleasant, but there were also more of them than just the worst-case scenarios. I don't know what she was planning. I don't think we can know unless we ask her. Byleth took a small breath, thinking. We'll keep an eye on her. And if something goes wrong, we have the divine pulse to make it right. Do not use the power I granted you as a crutch, Suthies warned, the choices you make should matter. They do. Even if no one else knows about them, they'll matter to me. And right now, I'm going to trust that Emily is friends with Shay. Suthies sighed. That is incredibly sappy, but very well. If you wish to give this girl the benefit of the doubt, I will not argue against it. I merely caution that letting a scorpion on your back may see you stung. People cannot change their natures easily. I don't agree with that. I think being able to change who we are makes us people. She smiled faintly. I know I've changed. I said they cannot change easily, not that it is impossible. Just make sure to keep those you care for safe. Always, Byleth agreed, before walking towards the dining hall to join her friends and family. She hoped the worries she had would amount to nothing, but if there were ever problems, she would do what she had to. She just hoped she could keep everyone safe. The rest of her birthday went very well as Shay enjoyed the rest of the day with her friends. She even received some more gifts from the other houses too. She definitely appreciated the cloak she got from Sylvain in case she ever had to go to the kingdom again. The curry comb she got from Ingrid also made her remember when she talked about being a dark knight. She should try training on horseback again. The bracelet she got from Dorothea was also nice, even if it did make her think she was starting to have a lot of accessories. And while she had read Lug and the Maiden before, she was happy to have a copy that Ash gifted her. Seems someone is going to get spoiled rotten at this rate, Arvel commented after her birthday dinner with her family and the Mercs. Shush you, Shay retorted, an amused expression on her face despite the teasing. It's been a busy year, getting to relax on a day like this is necessary. I suppose that is true. Though the year is almost over. Soon enough, you'll be free to journey once more. Well, maybe not right away, Shay said, thinking about Lysithea going to the Empire. Gonna have some things I need to check on first. I imagine you do. Your friend Lysithea will come first, won't she? They acknowledged, she and the crests she was cursed with. Yeah, it's weird, you know? It feels like crests cause more problems than they fix. Arvel kept their smile from growing too wide. Indeed. If they truly were a blessing of the goddess, then she is a remarkably cruel deity. Maybe? I still don't really care for the church, but I don't know. There's a bunch of weird stuff going on, and there's still those Agarthans we have to deal with. Yes, there is that matter to address, but for now, you should get some rest, my partner. It is getting late. Yeah, I guess it is. Good night, Arvel. Good night, partner, Arvel said, smiling as Shay laid down in bed. The smile dropped soon afterward as he considered his vessel, who was far too attached to the fell star. If she knew what he was planning, she would fight him. It didn't matter that her fate was ordained, she would resist it out of a misguided affection, and he could not allow that. And the sage Epimenides, lingering despite having passed from this world long ago, drifted down beside the girl that was his vessel. He could not sit on the bed, though he mimicked the action as he pet his young vessel's hair. Unable to touch, but trying nonetheless. She was flawed, but she was still his. Chapter 82, The Lone Wolf. Yuri Leclerc was many things. Most would call him a thief or a scoundrel, though when he was in the Empire, nobles called him quite the songbird. He was rather fond of boss, if he had to pick a title for himself. But right now, he was bored. He'd never say it out loud, but it was a lot less fun since his fellow Ashen Wolves started hanging out on the surface with everyone else. Sure, they still came back down to Abyss most days, since their rooms were still down there and they had to sleep eventually. Even so, it was quieter. Especially since the only students coming down there were Leonie, looking for things in the scrap pile, or Edelgard, and Claude, who kept reading the banned books. Which meant he was often on his own now. Letting out a sigh, he pushed himself up from where he was sitting. Well, if he was bored, he might as well drum up his own fun. With a quick journey up, Yuri found himself up topside. Pretty quickly, he realized it was still pretty early in the day since none of the students were milling about. Given that it wasn't the end of the week, that meant they were probably still in class. Going to the Black Eagles class was the immediate option, but Byleth would likely notice him right away. The Golden Deer was also no good since Balthus would definitely make a ruckus if he spotted him. Which left the Blue Lions as his destination. It was easy enough to find his old classroom, not like they ever moved things around up here, and he casually moved in to sit beside a gray-haired kid who he was pretty sure he remembered from one place or another. Huh? Ah, Yuri. Well, that was a good indicator that the kid knew him. SHH, no talking in class, he chided with a smirk, deciding he could piece together the freckled kid's identity as things went along. Oh, right, sorry. Polite boy. Cute too. The type who would be the darling of noble ladies looking for an earnest knight to keep them company. He had that sort of boyish look that made him seem honest, which made him an easy mark, though, no, he wasn't. The kid was keeping an eye on him out of the corner of his eye, not especially suspiciously, but there was an interest there, though, to be fair, Yuri had just sat right beside him out of nowhere. Anyone would be curious in that situation. Now, was he one of the students Yuri had interacted with on his last few visits up? No lions had shown up in Abyss lately, he'd recognize them if they did, so where did he know him from? Ah, that was it. Lord Gaspard's kid, the adopted commoner. Good to solve that mystery, though as for his name, Ash, that was right. Didn't he have a couple siblings? Probably named Dust and Grime if they fit the theme. Idle thoughts aside, Yuri found himself paying more attention to the people than the lesson. Hanneman was the same as ever. The old man was a decent educator, maybe a little long-winded, but nice enough. Towards the front though, there was the most interesting man in the room, His Highness, the Prince of Faerghus, good old Dimitri. And sure enough, he was right alongside his big buddy, Didu of Duskur. And wow, that was a massive man. Seemed even bigger than the last time he saw him. Built like an ox seemed like a solid descriptor, though he might be considered more of a castle wall instead. One part of Yuri couldn't help but draw some comparisons. Balthus could probably take the big man in a fight, but it would be an interesting one to watch. Probably a sight a lot of people would pay for too. He should see how good of a grappler Didu was first. He was a man built for physical fighting, but that could lend itself to heavy armor and axes over fisticuffs, and that wouldn't be nearly as fun as a pair of bulky brawlers in traditional war master garb going at it. Though he did hear the good prince had quite some strength himself, which didn't quite lend itself to the parallel of lean princely man and his buff right-hand man that Yuri sort of saw going on. A shame, he could have pretended to be Dimitri's evil doppelganger. As for the other front row folks, the short red-headed girl who couldn't seem to stop bouncing her knee even as she took notes was probably the Dominic girl. Not the heir, but the Baron's niece, which did make Yuri idly wonder what Simon was up to these days, but he could figure that out later. For now, his eyes drifted over to Lady Dominic's tall, blonde, and pillowy pal, who was taking notes just as attentively. She seemed like the type who'd be very at home in a monastery like this, one of those caring, pious girls that went into the clergy to happily live their lives for the goddess, at least on first impression. Speaking of first impressions, Yuri distinctly remembered his first impression of Mr. Sylvain José Gautier, who was sitting right beside Ingrid Galatea, as one might expect. The Faerghus Four were well known for a reason, though it was interesting to see little Felix was sitting all by his lonesome. Perhaps he was in his moody phase? Well, whatever. He had time to figure out what the lion's quirks were, especially since none of them had noticed him aside from Ash. It should make introductions fun later down the line. He was certainly curious if Sylvain would mistake him for a girl again. So, why were you in class with us? Ash asked once class ended, glancing up at it. Then he noticed Yuri had already left and he had to hurry to catch up with him. Hey. I just thought it would be interesting, Yuri answered, glancing back at him with a faint smirk. I used to be a lion before I became a wolf, so I wanted to see what it might be like to wear the mane again. So, did you like it? Ash asked, unsure of what he was saying. It wasn't bad. Hanneman is the same as ever, and the class this time around seems livelier than my old class. Course, I wasn't particularly close to any of those students. I see. Hey, can I ask why you were in the abyss? You just went missing a few years back, right? Why would anyone go into hiding, my dear boy? I'm sure you can come up with your own story. Perhaps I did something like you did in the past. Wait, how do you know about that? Ash asked, a bit taken aback. You don't become someone in my position without knowing things, Yuri responded, which wasn't exactly a lie. He had heard plenty of dirt about plenty of people, but he mainly heard about Ash from Ro complaining that Lord Lonato took in some thief kid. Well, hey there Yuri, any reason you decided to come visit? Claude asked, the Golden Deer leader noticing the two chatting in the courtyard. Do I need any reason to visit the lovely monastery? Yuri asked in turn with a wink. I wouldn't say you need a reason, but I imagine you have one. Kmin, you can tell me. Are you visiting friends? Seeing the sights? Or maybe looking for someone in particular? Yuri just grinned. It's cute that you're trying to get info out of me. Cute, but not really effective. You have to at least try to bribe me before I start sharing. And here I thought helping you out in Abyss was enough of a bribe already. That's true. Guess I should go talk with Shay then since she saved the day back then. What was that about me? Shay asked, catching wind of what Yuri said as she passed by. Oh, you know, I was just feeling like I should go talk with my helpful friend who saved the day back in Abyss. Who knows, I still do owe you, how about I take you on a date? He inquired with a flirtatious wink. You know, no offense Yuri, but you seem like the kind of dude who'd leave me with the tab after sneaking out. Ouch, not one to mince words, huh? Not entirely inaccurate, though he usually saved that for nobles he was trying to scam. It's part of my charm. Either way, no thanks. Can't hurt to ask, Yuri said with a smirk, but I know a losing battle when I see one. Well, in that case, why don't you just hang out with us for now? Claude offered, I'm sure there's plenty we can talk about. My apologies, but I already have my own escort, Yuri replied, gesturing to Ash. Unless this young knight would prefer to leave me on my own. Oh, well, I'm not doing anything, so I can show you around. Excellent. In that case. Yuri grinned at the deer. I hope you two have a good day. With that, he walked past them, well aware of Claude's analytical stare as he did. Claude was certainly a mystery he was interested in as well, but in a give-and-take relationship, he definitely seemed like the type to take more than give. Not that Yuri was any different, but he at least knew well enough when to cut his losses. Shay on the other hand, well, he wouldn't call her naive, but she was refreshingly blunt. It was probably more accurate to say that first impressions tended to stick with her. Which, of course, meant she'd end up trusting anyone who made a good first impression unless something big happened to change her mind. Well, Yuri at least hoped he wouldn't end up on her bad side. So, where exactly do you want to go? Ash asked as he followed behind Yuri, which wasn't quite how a guide should work. I mean, do you even need someone to show you around? That's your way of saying you don't want to hang out with me. And no. Heh, well, just felt like having some company, Yuri admitted. And you just so happen to be the lucky one who gets to show me around. Yeah, alright, well, I guess we can try, maybe the library first. Nah, I think I want to get something to eat, he decided before heading towards the dining hall. Why did you ask me to guide you then? Gotta say, the food up here beats that of Abyss any day of the week, Yuri noted after he finished off his food. Though it is missing that home meal touch. Ah, yeah, I get what you mean. It's not the same without my little siblings around, Ash mentioned. And how are they doing? Everything well on the home front? Oh, they're adjusting, after Lonato, well, apparently Sir Gwendol was put in charge of their welfare for the time being so they can at least stay at Lonato's manor, and there are people from the church making sure they're cared for. Ash sighed. It's going to be difficult though. I can't imagine trying to take responsibility for the territory will go over well since I used to be a commoner. Not to mention how I tried to stop Lonato during his rebellion. I wouldn't be surprised if some people blame me for his death. True, you might have some troubles in the future, but isn't living in Faerghus all about trying to overcome adversity? Yuri grinned. I seem to recall that being a virtue nearly everyone extolled in the knightly circles. Strength in the face of adversity, weather the cold, endure the famine, fight through the plague, that sort of stuff. Oh, did you try to become a knight? Ash asked, obvious curiosity leaking into his voice. No, but I spent plenty of time around knights. You pick a few things up here and there, he replied, before taking note of a certain blue-haired professor walking in with an interesting pair of students. He recognized Ingrid readily enough, given he'd already spotted her earlier, but the short, skittish, purple-haired girl, well, he knew Bernadetta was the right age to be here, so he shouldn't be too surprised. Hey Professor! Yuri decided to call out, raising a hand to catch her attention, if you're looking for somewhere to sit, why don't you join Ash and me over here? Oh, okay. She nodded, before heading over to the menu to order while both Ingrid and Bernadetta gave him skeptical looks. Well, Ingrid gave him a skeptical, studying look, while Bernadetta looked frightened by the sudden change in plans, up until she actually started looking at him. Then she couldn't help but stare. It seemed he was recognizable. Probably not a good thing, given his last encounter with her, but if he wanted to interact with the professor, he had to take some risk there. Gotta say, this is quite the pair you have with you, Yuri commented, noticing the trio all had plates of vegetable pasta salad, though Ingrid had brought along a plate of fried pheasant too. I'm here to mediate, Byleth responded, sitting between the two students. Ah, is everything okay? Ash asked, making Ingrid look a bit sheepish. It's something that may have been my fault, Ingrid admitted, while Bernadetta tried to shrink into her clothes. Ingrid apparently broke Bernadetta's door, Byleth explained. She fixed it, but I wanted to make sure everything was okay. Really? I didn't think the Knights of Faerghus made a habit of breaking down doors, Yuri remarked. It was a one-time thing. Ingrid shouted, though she immediately regretted it as Bernadetta squeaked. What exactly happened? Ash inquired, trying to distract the easily frightened archer. Ingrid came by because the professor was training her, and Ingrid realized she hadn't seen me in the training grounds for some time. I went to go fetch her and, when she didn't come out of her room, I took it upon myself to take drastic measures, Ingrid elaborated after Bernadetta trailed off. While it is impressive she was able to kick the door off its hinges, I wanted to make sure everything was okay, Byleth finished. I'm not sure if I can accept that compliment at the moment, Ingrid said with a frown. Though while I will apologize for the door, I still think it was for the best that she joined in on the training. But what if there was someone scary in there? I am mean, there was that one time I got trapped in there with Felix and Emily after Shay left me. She did? Byleth asked, a bit surprised. I'll make sure to talk to her. And no, it's okay, Professor. Well, while I can't speak for Emily, Ingrid began, deciding not to mention how unpleasant the surly addressee intended to be, Felix isn't as bad as he might seem. You sure? He seemed to be quite moody from what I saw, Yuri noted, unless he's just not a fan of Hanuman's lessons. Well, they admittedly aren't usually what Felix wants to focus on, Ingrid commented, though, how do you know about Professor Hanuman's lessons? Oh, Yuri used to be part of the Blue Lions a few years ago, apparently, Ash answered. He was? Well, I did see him working for Count Rowe in the past, so that makes sense. If you count being adopted by him as working, then sure, Yuri responded. And if I remember correctly, you came by to talk with Gwendol about something. Mind if I ask what it was about? I was cleaning up a friend's mistake. Sylvain? Byleth asked, to which Ingrid nodded. Yes, he angered Lord Gwendol by flirting with his daughter. Well, for what it's worth, I didn't mind his flirting that much, Yuri responded, getting a skeptical look from Ingrid. For the record, Gwendol doesn't have a daughter. Though I do consider him like a father. Well, you do look really pretty, she noted, staring at Yuri's face with a thoughtful expression, which earned a smirk from him. Nice to know my looks are appreciated really, he's not the first to make that sort of assumption and I doubt he'll be the last so long as I keep these dashing good looks of mine. Right, so, I did want to say I'm sorry, Bernadetta, Ingrid apologized, focusing back on the shorter girl, I was too hasty, well, maybe hasty isn't the right word, I acted without thinking, and I'm sorry I destroyed your door and scared you like that. Bernadetta, however, wasn't paying attention to her. In fact, she was staring at Yuri with a thoughtful expression, which, well, he had a feeling she might piece things together, though he did kind of want to put off that conversation for later. Perhaps in a less public setting? But, well, if she was looking. Hello there, Bernie, are you so completely entranced by my beauty that you're at a loss for words? And no, I am mean, you why yes, and no, wait. Yuri. And that earned a frown from Ingrid. Don't tease Bernadetta like that. Oh, alright, I'll focus my attention on you then if you insist. He actually got her to turn a little pink there. She grimaced a second later though. Please, I grew up with Sylvain, you're going to have to step up your game if you want to make me blush. Well if you want to make it a challenge for me, then sure, I'm up for it. Yuri. And that was an interestingly chiding tone from Byleth there. Stop teasing my students. Oh? I didn't think Ingrid transferred. Stop teasing students in general. That's no fun. Well, can I tease you instead? He asked with a grin, you are rather easy on the eyes after all. Thank you, Byleth said, nonplussed as she ate her salad. No reaction. I'm not interested in romance. Turned down twice in one day, starting to think I'm losing my edge. I'm sure you'll recover. Letting out an amused huff, Yuri got up, deciding to cut his losses and leave. A moment afterwards, Ash followed behind him, making him grin as he glanced at the lion. "You're quite the earnest man, aren't you? Well, you said you needed an escort, right?" "That's true. I'm just surprised you've stuck around my side this entire time," Yuri said, before tussling his hair. "You're going to be quite the heartbreaker in the future, aren't you?" What you're talking about?" "Well, hey there, Ash, who's your friend here?" Sylvain asked, a grin on his face as he looked at Yuri. Oh, hey Sylvain. This is Yuri." "Yuri, huh? You know, I remember reading that Yuri can be another name for a lily, and gotta say, you're definitely as pretty as a flower," he said with a wink. "Well, better than your last attempt to flirt with me," Yuri noted with a smirk. "What was it you said all those years ago? Hello there, chickadee, how about you let this rooster into the henhouse?" I believe it was. Yuri had to admit, as fun as it was seeing Sylvain's eyes widen in shock as he remembered meeting Yuri before, Ash's grimace was far more hilarious. "Oh, well, right. Is that offer still on the table or?" He couldn't help the smirk that crossed his face as Sylvain immediately turned around to leave as his face turned red. "Oh, I am going to have so much fun joining the lions again." Chapter 83, Back to Class. Ethereal Moon, a month of respite for the students of Gareg Mach Monastery. For many, this particular moon was what they were looking forward to all year, as it was the time of the monastery's grand ball. A special occasion where they may all eat, drink, and dance the night away. There was even the chance for romance to bloom. However, not all was well for the students. For one class in particular it was a time of great strife and pain, in which a sacrifice must be made. One of their number would be thrown to the wolves, never to recover again should they fail. Yes, for the Blue Lions it was the worst time of the year. The White Heron Cup was upon them. Dimitri took a deep, troubled breath as he looked out over his friends and classmates. "Friends, I come to you with an important question. One that will decide the fate of the Blue Lions house going forward. Who should be our representative for the White Heron Cup?" "Why don't you do it?" Sylvain suggested, earning an immediate frown from Dimitri. "Sylvain, you're my friend, so I'll let that slide." Not sure how that could be taken as an insult, but, thanks. "I haven't danced since I was a child, Sylvain, if I were to try now I'll just make a mockery of myself," Dimitri explained while Mercedes did her best not to laugh as she remembered the image Byleth had brought up. "Oh, in that case, I wanna volunteer," Annette offered, immediately jumping up, causing relief to fall over most of the Blue Lions as she did. "Oh, I didn't know you could dance, Annie," Mercedes remarked. "Well, I mean, I haven't really been taught or anything, but I'm sure if I give it my all I'll do fine." "You did have nice footwork when you were singing," Felix noted, almost making Annette fall over. "Felix, you weren't supposed to say anything about that." "I do remember saying I didn't agree to your deal." Well, didn't expect Felix to go after little Annette," Sylvain teased. "I mean, getting to hear her sing and dance, it sounds like you two are quite close." "I'm doing no such thing. All I did was overhear her in the greenhouse," Felix said with a frown. "Besides, I'm pretty sure Claude also heard her once before, given that song I heard him singing to himself. That's it, I'm not volunteering," Annette yelled, her face scarlet as she ran away. "Oh, I hope you'll excuse me, I'm going to go make sure she's okay," Mercedes said, getting up to follow Annette. Sylvain sighed. "Well, there goes that plan." "Good going, Felix." "How is it my fault? I was saying she was a good fit for the position." "Either way, we're down a volunteer. Maybe we should just have Professor Hanneman choose," Ash suggested. "If none of us want to volunteer, we might as well leave it up to chance." "Honestly, do none of you know how to dance?" Yuri asked, a bit astounded. "I know Faergus likes to focus on knighthood above all else, but I would think at least some of you were taught how to dance." "Kinda hard to learn how to dance when you're trying to swim in a full set of armor," Sylvain noted. "Or fighting a pack of wolves with just a sword," Ingrid said. "Or just trying to make sure your house doesn't get encased in snow," Ash muttered. Not for the first time since joining the Blue Lions, Dida felt very worried for his classmates. Well, as an olive branch to my new classmates, I suppose I might as well volunteer to do away with this negativity, Yuri offered. I may never have been officially taught, but I did spend enough time around nobles back in the Empire to pick up a thing or two. Oh, that's great, Yuri dash. That being said, I expect to be paid back for this. Unless any of you want to volunteer. He was met with silence. Excellent, in that case, I might as well practice a bit. And might be a good idea to scope the competition. He was confident enough in his skills, but it would only be proper to know who he was going up against. Okay, so that's 2 votes for Ferdinand, 3 for Flayn, and 7 for Dorothea, Byleth stated as she noted down the final tally. Well, it is a shame I wasn't chosen, but I will cheer you on nonetheless, Dorothea. Flayn said, smiling at her classmate. Ah, thanks, Flayn. If it helps, I did vote for you, Dorothea replied, smiling at her shorter classmate. Yes, as much as I wished to show off my own moves, I couldn't help but vote for you as well, Flayn. The eagerness you showed set my own noble heart ablaze. Ferdinand declared, smiling brightly. Perhaps it was for the best you didn't win, Ferdinand. Though I may have voted for you, I do seem to recall you making quite the fool of yourself back when I attended a ball your family was hosting, Constance remarked, laughing into her fan. I remember no such thing. Perhaps you were just so dazzled by my moves that you misremembered it? Isn't that right, Lady Edelgard? Perhaps it is for the best that you choose to fight as cavalry, Ferdinand, Edelgard noted, getting her class to laugh as she also remembered his dazzling moves. Well, guess that settles that. Was kinda obvious Dorothea would win, Happy muttered. It really was. Logically speaking, the one most skilled at dancing should be the one to do so, Linhard added, bored with the proceedings already. I am just glad I don't have to be the one to do it, I'm already dreading the ball. Bernadetta commented, not looking forward to having to dance in front of so many people. We don't need to dance, right? Marianne asked. Come on you two, it'll be great. Casper said, grinning at his classmates. Tons of food and fun. Will they be allowing traditional Brigid dances? Petra asked. There is no rule stating what dances are allowed, Hubert noted. I'll check to make sure it's all okay, Byleth said, nodding. I should probably also read up on dances to help Dorothea practice. Oh, thank you, Professor. Do you have any experience? None at all, but I have read up on dancers. Apparently if you win, the church will reward us with materials to let you be one on the battlefield. Humph, how preposterous. So should we expect her to perform a ballroom dance as we fight? Hubert snidely asked. Not exactly. Traditionally dancers on the battlefield help raise morale by inspiring troops, and supposedly the winner of the contest will also be awarded with garb that has been enchanted to increase their speed, Byleth responded, so even though I don't know how to dance, I'll do my best to help. Heh, in that case, I'll do my best. Dorothea declared, a grin on her face. Though if you want to help me practice, then it's best to get some in-person practice instead of reading some books. Ah, are you sure? I've never really danced before. Of course. In fact, why don't we all practice together? I mean, even if I'm the one competing, the ball is still happening at the end of the month, Dorothea said, grinning. That is true, and our mission this month is only dealing with some bandits, so we don't have anything big to deal with, Byleth considered, thinking for a moment, before nodding. Okay, today's class shall be dance practice. What? Bernadetta squeaked. Great, in that case, come on then. The courtyard would be better for this. Dorothea said, leading some of her more eager classmates out, while those not looking forward to the dance trudged behind. Well, I must admit, I never thought I would have dance practice as one of my lessons at the academy, Edelgard said to Byleth, not to be rude, but would I be able to skip this? I actually am a skilled dancer as it is. You are? I'm surprised you didn't volunteer. Yes, I quite enjoyed dancing when I was younger. Though, as you can plainly see, I wasn't the most eager to do so, Edelgard pointed out, looking out at the courtyard as she saw Dorothea instruct some of their classmates, and I have no interest in being a dancer on the field as it were. It would be quite difficult dancing in a full set of armor. Byleth couldn't help but imagine that, making her giggle for a moment. I suppose that would be inspiring in its own way, Byleth said, missing the slight smile on Edelgard's face from hearing her professor giggle. Oh, if you are a skilled dancer, would you be able to dance with Dorothea so I can have an example? Professor, if I may ask, are you attempting to accomplish something between Dorothea and I? I think you two would be cute together. Edelgard felt her face warm at the admission, though she wasn't sure how to feel about it. Her professor was the person she had feelings for, so being told she was trying to nudge her towards another woman was confusing. Though, she did feel her eyes turn towards Dorothea, noting the kind smile on her face as she led Petra through a few steps of a waltz. How in the world was she supposed to respond to a statement like that? Byleth, meanwhile, felt her smile grow as she saw Edelgard staring at Dorothea with a very obvious blush. She was definitely the best matchmaker. So, how exactly do we break this news? Claude asked Hilda and Laurence. How does someone even do that with this type of news? Laurence asked in turn, frowning as he looked at his class, squabbling amongst themselves about who'd be made to be the representative. I mean, it would probably be best just to tell her, right? Hilda suggested, really not happy, that she had to be involved as Claude's retainer. She's not gonna be happy if we keep this a secret and she finds out from someone else. Very well. My father is the one attempting to handle matters, so it's only right I do so as well. Laurence decided, frowning as he prepared himself. Right, thanks Laurence. I'll make sure to keep the class occupied while you do, Claude offered, trying to put a smile on his face as he approached his classmates. Hey there everyone, any luck on choosing the sacrifice? Oh yeah, it's gonna be Emily, Shay said, getting said student to slam her hands on the desk. I never said yes. I can do it if she doesn't want to, Raphael offered, I'll make sure everyone has a fun time laughing. Raphael, you're not supposed to make people laugh at the White Heron Cup. Ignatz pointed out. As much as I don't like to admit it, a noble would probably be a better option for this, Leonie noted with a frown. Pretty sure any dances I know aren't going to be a hit. I have no interest in dancing either. I've been neglecting my studies, so I'll be focusing on that. Lysithea said, thinking about how she was already making preparations for going to the Empire. Though that was cut off as Laurence tapped her shoulder, gesturing for her to follow him. I mean, I'd be willing to do it if someone paid me, Balthus muttered as the mage and cavalier left the classroom. Lysithea could hear Hilda begin to try and nudge Emily into agreeing as they left, so odds were the Adrestian noble really would be their sacrifice. What do you want? She asked her taller classmate after they walked a bit further, not wanting to be overheard by the Black Eagles practicing in the courtyard. Ah. Lysithea, have you heard about what has happened in the Alliance? Laurence asked, trying to broach the topic carefully. Nothing as of late. Why, what happened? Well, after the Almiran attack, several nobles began to take political action, attempting to expand their own powers and such. As it turns out, Archeron is one of those nobles. And what did that blowhard do? He has made an attempt to try and raise his house into great house status. To that end, he has taken over Ordelia territory. Lysithea went still, her eyes going wide. What? He is using the Almiran attack as an excuse to say that despite its status as a great house, Ordelia made no attempt to help. That's because it doesn't have the power to do so. Exactly. That lack of power is the leg he is using to stand on to try and force this. And since no other great house attempted to help during the attack either, all of them are keeping quiet. They can't just do nothing. It's difficult. I understand what you're thinking, but Archeron has made his demands, and has said if they aren't met, he will attempt to secede to the Empire, saying he is already in contact with Duke Agir, Laurence explained, frowning. My father has taken your family under his protection, so they are safe, but as he is part of the pro-imperial households in the Alliance, there is little he can do under such threats without jeopardizing the connections he has. My father will attempt to figure out something, but until then he will ensure your family is, Lysithea. Laurence called out in surprise as the mage abruptly pushed past him, and ran towards Edelgard. Edelgard, what the hell? She called out the princess, breaking her out of her stare as she tore her eyes from where she had been watching Dorothea and Byleth practicing. Lysithea, what is the matter? Isn't it obvious? Why is Acheron attempting to secede to the Empire with Ordelia territory? Lysithea demanded to know, getting the practice to stop as everyone heard what she was saying. Edelgard's eyes visibly widened in surprise, before she moved to fully face the younger girl. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Acheron, the Weathervane of House Phlegethon. Why is he threatening to secede to the Empire with my parents' territory? Her frown deepened, her eyes glancing towards Lorenz for a moment before she looked at Lysithea again. Lysithea, I need you to explain to me what happened. I haven't heard of any of this. How couldn't you? Lorenz said. Lysithea, pardon my interruption, but I believe Edelgard when she says she knows nothing of what happened, Lorenz cut in, trying to head off Lysithea's anger before he looked towards the Imperial Princess, though I will note that it is concerning that Acheron is apparently operating with the backing of the Imperial Prime Minister. Lorenz, Lysithea, please explain to me what you mean, Edelgard requested, her tone noticeably getting colder after the Prime Minister was mentioned. Acheron stole my parents' land, Lysithea explained, scowling. He's trying to push to join the Round Table and he occupied Ordelia territory to make that happen. Apparently my parents are only safe because Lorenz's father is sheltering them. Ah, thank you for that, by the way. Ah, no need to. But now that he's occupying our land, he's saying he'll secede to the Empire if his house doesn't get to become a great one, she continued, verbally barreling over Lorenz along the way, and he just, how could he even do that? Well, he has shown himself to be very opportunistic. I know that part, Lorenz. I don't understand how he did it. Didn't we fight his forces off easily just a few months ago? How could he possibly muster enough military power to take over Ordelia territory to begin with? Is the Empire really helping him that much? I don't think so, but I plan to investigate, Edelgard stated with a deep frown on her face. Let me assure you, Lysithea, I had no idea Lord Acheron was making a move like this. At the very least I've heard no word of my father being in contact with Archeron, Ferdinand said with a frown as he came over. I can assure you if he is behind this, he shall properly pay his dues. Professor, my apologies, but I shall need to step away for the moment, Edelgard stated, getting Byleth to nod as she frowned. So, I don't really know what's going on, but a bad guy took over Lysithea's place, right? Casper spoke up, then let's go beat him up. It's not that simple, Casper. It'd be one thing if he was just making an attempt to seize Ordelia's land, but the fact that he was already able to take over the territory without anyone noticing, all while aided by unknown forces means we cannot act rashly, Lorenz responded, not noticing how Byleth perked up at the words unknown forces. Lysithea, can I speak with you for a moment? The professor requested, prompting a curious look from Lorenz and a slight frown from Ferdinand. Professor, does the name Myson mean anything to you? The ginger noble decided to ask, earning an alarmed look from Edelgard that she barely managed to hide while Byleth frowned, thinking she might know where he was going with this. Lorenz and Lysithea, meanwhile, were just confused. No, it doesn't. It might relate to who I am thinking about though. May I ask who Myson is? A warlock that my father associates with. Even Ferdinand couldn't miss the gasp Lysithea let out there. One I harbor certain suspicions towards. F. Ferdinand, does this Myson person belong to a group? Edelgard cleared her throat, catching everyone's attention. I believe this matter may require more subtlety to discuss. Oh, not to worry, Edelgard. I am the very picture of subtlety. Lorenz assured. No one, aside from Ferdinand, looked reassured. Be that as it may, Lorenz, we're still in the courtyard, she pointed out. Oh, that is true. Well, I'm sure we can find a more private location to discuss this matter then. I'm sorry Lorenz, but this is a private matter between Edelgard and Lysithea, Byleth said, getting Lorenz to frown before he shook his head. I'm afraid that I can't sit this one out, Professor. As it is, I do feel some guilt for allowing this situation to occur in the first place. It was my decision to spare Archeron when I dealt with him a few months ago, and if I had taken action then. I understand, and I appreciate your stance. However, I think it would be better if we talk privately first. We can tell you the details when it's possible, but for now, can you write back to your father to ask for more information on what happened in Ordelaya territory? Letting out a sigh, Lorenz frowned. Very well, that does sound like it could help, but I request you tell me as soon as you can. At his request, Edelgard nodded. Now then, I believe we should head back into the classroom to discuss this. That didn't sit well with her retainer. Lady Edelgard, I don't dash. Hubert, please make sure no one enters the room while we discuss things, Edelgard said, her tone making it clear it was an order, not a request. Very well, Lady Edelgard, Hubert agreed, glowering as he did. Soon enough, the four of them were in the Black Eagle classroom, the doors closed to give them privacy. Ferdinand, who is Myson? Lysithea demanded to know. For a moment, Ferdinand glanced at Edelgard, who nodded in return. Both she and the professor are aware of what happened to me. As I said, he is a warlock my father keeps company with. While I have no definitive proof of what he did, he, along with my father, committed a horrible atrocity, Ferdinand explained. I haven't seen him in years, but if Archeron is being truthful about working with my father, I wouldn't be surprised if Myson has been a middleman of sorts. It also means that the people Myson is working with might also be taking a more proactive role, Byleth noted. For that matter, who exactly are these people? Ferdinand asked. They're apparently from a place called Agartha. They also seem to be performing several experiments in an attempt to create a human weapon, Lysithea explained, and as she did, Ferdinand glanced between her and Edelgard, a look of understanding crossing his face. I see. One thing is certain, if we are to act, we must do something about Duke Aegir first. With Ordelaya under his control, trying to do something to Archeron can put those still living under that territory in danger, particularly if he has Aegir's backing, Edelgard said, before looking at Lysithea. Will that be okay, Lysithea? My parents are okay. As far as I am aware, my father and Count Gloucester are old friends, so I'm sure he's treating them well. Do not expect me to wait forever though. Of course, we shall move as soon as possible. Yes, if my father truly is involved, then there will be evidence this time, I'm sure of it. Ferdinand said, getting Edelgard to frown. And what if there isn't? She asked, catching him off guard. Excuse me. What if there is no evidence? Are we going to sit idly by and do nothing? That is not what I mean, Lady Edelgard. However, if he is to stand trial, we must first obtain evidence of his wrongdoings. Would that even help? Byleth asked. If he's corrupt, then how many other people are corrupt? For all we know, the person meant to sentence him could be in his pocket. That, I understand my father may be a criminal, but we cannot assume every noble is one as well. Even if they aren't, most of them are self-serving, Lysithea muttered. My family suffered because of the Empire before and no other house did anything, and even now they aren't acting. I'm sure they're just biding their time as well. Ferdinand started, before Edelgard slammed her hand on a desk. Ferdinand, you should know as well as I do by now how corrupt the nobility can be. 6 of the major houses in the Empire turned against the Emperor, and sat idly by as my family was experimented on. If you truly believe it is the duty of a noble to look after everyone else, then you should see how this system has laid the foundation for corruption. Edelgard stated, frowning at Ferdinand. Our ancestors might have earned the right to be nobles, but how did the nobility of those who came after earned it? I am willing to admit there are those who may be deserving of being called noble, but a vast majority have the title simply because of their blood, and they make no attempt to prove themselves worthy. I cannot deny your words. But I still believe in nobility. Yes, it may be less common than it should be for nobles to live up to the ideal they should hold, but that does not devalue those ideals. I don't have anything against those ideals, Ferdinand. What I take exception with is the people who use those ideals as an excuse to be corrupt. People who claim to be guiding and protecting the common folk under their power while actually abusing them benefit from the concept of the ideal nobility. As long as we place value in the system of nobility, it can be used as an excuse to do harm. That's not, Ferdinand took a breath. I know there are problems, Edelgard. What do you propose we do then? If you're so convinced we cannot have my father removed through legal means, what do you plan to do? Because I will not condone assassination. Nor should you. And I do not intend to use illegal means to remove your father, merely non-standard ones. Edelgard straightened, facing Ferdinand directly. Ferdinand von Aegir, would you support me if I chose to take the throne of Adrestia before the school year ends? I already made it clear that I will support you when you become emperor. Though, I would like to point out that you would have many duties that you would need to perform should you choose to become emperor, many of which would require your attention far more than what the Academy would let you. I understand that. If need be, I am willing to withdraw from the Academy, Edelgard stated, catching everyone off guard. You are? Ferdinand asked. I suppose that's as good a sign as any how seriously you're taking this, Lysithea remarked, still frowning. Byleth, meanwhile, stayed silent, not sure what to say. Especially since she felt tense. She had already known Edelgard was going to be emperor, but for her to leave before the school year was over. Very well. I must admit, it would be foolish of me to stand against you if you're being genuine. I, Ferdinand von Aegir, swear to support your ascension to the throne. Thank you. At that, Edelgard glanced at Byleth. Professor, there are things I would need to prepare first, but would you be willing to accompany me when I head to the Empire later this month? You want me to go with you? For one to ascend to the throne, one needs a representative from the church. I can think of no other I would prefer than you to be the representative, Edelgard stated. Okay, I promise. If I may, what exactly are you planning on doing once you ascend the throne? Lysithea asked. At that, Edelgard took a deep breath. This was a big risk, but if she could convince Ferdinand, then she could surely convince everyone else. I plan on abolishing the nobility system. Edelgard. Ferdinand started before she raised a hand to cut him off. To be specific, my plan is to establish a system of merits, one where those who have the ability to, shall rise and be rewarded. Even if there are nobles who truly wish to protect those under them, they aren't allowing them to flourish. Think about Dorothea, because of the circumstances she had, she was able to join the academy despite being a commoner, but how many other commoners could be as skilled as her, if not more, if they were only given a chance to rise above their station? If we had more people like you, then this system would not be needed, but as is, if you truly wish to help the common folk, then you must see how damaging the nobility system is to them. If you truly wish to guide them as a noble, then do so, help them rise above their station so that those who can are able to earn the position they deserve. I understand what you are saying, but I have a hard time accepting it. I truly believe that the nobility should work to protect everyone, Ferdinand said, before sighing. How certain are you of your system working? It will take a great deal of work, and I don't expect it to be accomplished overnight, but I am completely certain that a new system is needed to fix what is wrong with Adrestia. I want you to write your manifesto. Let me read all your reforms. If I truly believe in what you are saying, I shall fully support you, but, if I find any faults, then I expect you to be willing to listen to my criticism. I will be more than willing, Edelgard stated, meeting his eyes without flinching. After a moment, he nodded. Very well. Then, as said, I, Ferdinand von Aegir, shall support your ascension to the throne. At that, Edelgard couldn't help but feel a swell of joy. It worked, she had been able to convince him. Thank you, Ferdinand, Edelgard said, hiding the elation she felt before she turned to Lysithea. My apologies for getting off topic, Lysithea. It seemed necessary, Lysithea replied, turning away. For what it's worth, I had no intention of continuing House Ordelia. I am not opposed to your idea of doing away with the nobility. Somehow, it feels like my statements lose some of their standing when another noble is okay with doing away with the nobility. Ferdinand muttered. Come now, Ferdinand. If you end up crumbling so easily, I'm not sure how well any criticisms you have may stand, Edelgard teasingly chided. Now, before we end this, I must ask that you keep what I told you a secret. I am planning on informing more people of my plans, but if word were to spread, then who knows what the nobility of Adrestria may do. Or what the church might do, but she wouldn't say that. Humph, I'm not one to spread gossip, Lysithea said. I swear to keep this discussion a secret, though I do ask you to hurry with your manifesto, Ferdinand requested. Of course. Oh, and Ferdinand, could you distract Hubert for a bit as you leave so I may discuss something with the professor? I shall do my best, Ferdinand stated, before he and Lysithea left. The pair that remained behind heard Ferdinand say something about needing Hubert's help to practice dancing, before the doors closed again. I must admit, being able to openly discuss my plans certainly removes a weight from my shoulders, Edelgard said with a smile. Byleth responded with a non-committal noise, thinking that if things really had gone wrong with Ferdinand, she might have turned back time just to stop it. I suppose I have you to thank in part for that, my teacher. If you hadn't made me tell Lysithea and shame my reasoning, I might have ended up keeping more secrets. Well, I'm glad I could help, Byleth said, before frowning. Are you actually going to leave the academy? If need be, yes. I must say, this isn't quite exactly how I planned on becoming emperor, but such is how things go. When are you leaving? I would prefer to be here for the White Heron Cup, to cheer Dorothea on, she explained, which did make Byleth perk up a little. Afterwards, I'll likely head back to take the throne, though I am not certain when exactly I will be withdrawing from the academy. You should make sure to stay for the ball. Everyone is looking forward to it and it won't be the same with you gone. If I can, I'll make sure to be here, Edelgard agreed. At the very least, I would prefer we properly deal with Emily before I actually leave. Byleth couldn't help but frown. She knew they had to address the Emily issue. She was well aware, but being the emperor will help with that, Edelgard continued, unaware of Byleth's inner turmoil. It will be easy to investigate the Korsch family to see if Emily has been replaced. I have to admit, I am already convinced she is one of the imposters, but it would be best if we could be sure. Right, that hadn't been what Edelgard said before. She could change her mind, of course, that was fine. Right? When do you think she was replaced? If I were to guess, I imagine it had to be before the school year began. So the Emily we've known was never the real Emily. Byleth frowned, leaning back against one of the desks. Which means the Emily we know is an entirely different person from whoever Emily Korsch was. It also means the original is likely dead. It would be foolish to leave her alive if they had no further use for her. She knew she was echoing Suthi's words. Part of her felt like a hypocrite. That is very likely, yes. It's strange. I shouldn't feel conflicted, but I do. Emily can be unpleasant, but she is one of my students. Or, she was. Professor, you can't feel that way about a spy. I know. I hope she really isn't an enemy. I don't want to hurt one of my students. That's a very kind attitude for a mercenary, Professor, Edelgard noted, trying to sound a little teasing. I'm a teacher now, not a mercenary. My attitude needs to change to suit my profession. I think. She shrugged. Maybe things would have been simpler if my father hadn't left all those years ago and I became a knight instead, but, then, I wouldn't have what I have now, so, everything is very complicated. Indeed. Life tends to be, Professor. If it wasn't, I likely would have remained a spoiled princess, maybe only worrying about an arranged marriage or what sweets I would try to sneak at night, Edelgard said wistfully, though I suppose in that scenario, we likely would have met in the academy again. Just without the bandits coming after us. Maybe? That's nice to think about, still being able to meet you all, Byleth replied, a small smile on her face. Yes, though, I am glad to be able to call you my teacher. And I'm glad to be able to have you as my student. Professor, before I leave the academy, I have something important I wish to tell you, Edelgard said, keeping herself steady. When that time comes, I hope you are able to understand. Of course, whenever you're ready, Byleth replied, before she got up. Now I'll leave you to your investigating. I should make sure everyone is actually dancing. Knowing our classmates, they likely are, Edelgard remarked, chuckling to herself, even as she prepared herself for what she would confess. Her teacher deserved to know her identity as the Flame Emperor. Chapter 84, Recruitment Drive. Lady Edelgard, what the fuck? Edelgard blinked, then glanced up from her tea in visible confusion at her retainer. "What did you just say, Hubert?" "I said, Lady Edelgard, what do you think you're doing?" She was fairly certain that wasn't what he said, but also the first thing she heard sounded so completely out of character for him to say that she genuinely thought an auditory hallucination was more likely. Though his actual question still warranted a prodding response. "I am having tea, Hubert." He looked distinctly unamused by her wit. "Why did you inform Ferdinand of all people of your plans?" Hubert said, glowering. "It is one thing to divulge your secrets to someone, but why him of all people? Just because he agrees his father must be punished doesn't mean he would have agreed with your goals. And yet, he did. While he will likely have his criticisms of my reforms, the fact doesn't change that he is supporting me. Really, the fact that I told Ferdinand is for the best. And why exactly is that? Simple, if I was able to convince him, think of how much easier it will be to convince everyone else." "What?" "It's what I'm planning on doing. Before I leave to ascend the throne, I'll make my case to my classmates. We are in need of allies, Hubert. It may be some time, years even, before we are capable of declaring war with the choices we've made so far, but changing the nobility system in Adrestia will require all the aid we can get. Especially if those who slither in the dark are active. Lady Edelgard, I must insist you do not follow this plan. Hubert, you're my most trusted ally, and my closest friend. I understand where your concern is coming from, but both of our ideas share the same level of risk. At least this way, we can plan around those who may or may not work with us, rather than letting things land as they may. I strongly advise against this course of action. I'll make sure to keep that in mind. At the very least do take some comfort in knowing I won't tell Flane." "I would hope you weren't foolish enough to inform her," Hubert muttered while Edelgard went back to her tea. Despite the confidence she seemed to hold, she was undoubtedly nervous about actually being honest with her classmates. For now though. Best plan on who to talk to first. "Dorothea, a word please." "Oh, sure Edie, what do you need?" Dorothea asked, glancing towards the princess while she helped Marianne practice her dancing with Hilda. It was almost funny seeing the golden deer so eagerly join in the next day of practicing after hearing what had happened to Ordelia. Apparently they wanted to distract themselves from the bad news, though Lysithea looked like she was about to blast someone in the face. That was probably because Shay was practically carrying her while they practiced though. "Follow me if you would," Edelgard requested, leading the way to a corner at the far end of the courtyard. Raising an eyebrow, Dorothea followed behind, giving Hilda a thumbs up as she gave one in return. "I trust you heard what is happening in the Alliance." It was hard not to. Lysithea was being quite loud yesterday, Dorothea muttered with a frown. "Is everything okay?" "Not yet, but it will be. I'm having Hubert investigate at the moment and I'm already planning what to do to resolve things," Edelgard explained. "Before the end of the month, I am planning on taking the throne of Adrestia." "Really? Well, that's a surprise to hear. I had already known you'd be the emperor, but to hear it happening so soon, well, it's a bit hard to imagine our little Edie like that." Dorothea teased, getting Edelgard to blush. To that end, I wanted to know if you would support my ascension." Now that actually caught her off guard. "Huh? I mean, of course I do. Is it necessary to ask me? I mean, I'm not a noble. You are still one of my closest friends. Not to mention that an emperor doesn't just rule over the nobility. I also wished to ask if you truly support me in abolishing the nobility system," Edelgard stated, making her intentions clear. "Of course I do. I have no love for the nobility, so if you were to do away with them, I certainly wouldn't complain," Dorothea said, before smiling. "Maybe I really should start writing that play about you? The young emperor seeking to change the empire, perhaps with a dashing mercenary by her side." "I would prefer the play remain as close to fact as it can if you write it. That being said, I will likely be away from the academy after this month." Edelgard did her best to adopt a teasing smile. "Perhaps you'll be able to take the time to grow closer to our professor while I'm gone." That is true, I can certainly make sure to sing your praises to her while you're gone," Dorothea shot back, flustering Edelgard as she did. As odd as this sounds, I will miss being able to talk with you every day like this once I take the throne, Dorothea, Edelgard said, after calming herself down. Same for me, Edie, but I look forward to meeting the Emperor of Adrestia, Dorothea replied, giggling as they turned back to rejoin the class. Though as they did, they noticed Byleth speaking with Manuela, before the two glanced over at them. They then proceeded to give them both a thumbs up. Perhaps we should try to clear any misunderstandings first, Edelgard suggested. I don't know, is it a misunderstanding? Dorothea asked with a teasing smile. I mean, it is common for the Emperor to take on multiple consorts, no? Huh? Edelgard asked, her face burning up. But Dorothea didn't reply, instead simply heading back to practice with that same teasing smile. That's not. Edelgard shook her head, trying to clear her head of the thoughts Dorothea's teasing suggestion brought to mind. It was much more difficult than she thought it should be. Thank you for having tea with me, Petra, Edelgard said, smiling at her friend. Of course, it is a pleasure to be here, Petra replied, smiling in return. Now, while I would love to have small talk, I would rather cut to the chase. Are we chasing something? No, what I want to say is that I will likely be leaving the academy soon. I intend to become the emperor within the coming weeks. Ah, that is certainly not small at all, Petra noted. You are following your ambitions, yes. I am, though admittedly I didn't plan to go after them so soon. That being said, I do remember telling you I would hit as many pheasant as I needed to. As such, once you graduate, I plan on letting you return to Brigid and freeing your nation. You would? Petra asked, a bit of disbelief in her voice. Yes, I want Brigid to be an ally of the Empire, not a vassal. Once you become the Queen of Brigid, I hope we will be able to shake hands as you once said, Edelgard stated, though, admittedly, it may be some time before that occurs. The reforms I will enact are guaranteed to cause unrest in the Empire, so I doubt we will be able to discuss becoming allies right away. So, you would allow the people of Brigid to be free? No knots to the Empire in any way. Petra asked, the people of my nation may not do nothing. They bear many grudges and may attempt something. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Even so, I want to put my trust in you, as my friend. You are being far more honest, Edelgard. I suppose I am. We can thank our professor for that. The professor is a very kind person, Petra admitted, after a moment of silence. At times, it is difficult to imagine her as a fighter. It is, yet that kindness and strength has guided us and made us all the stronger. It has, Petra agreed, before nodding. I swear, once I am the Queen of Brigid, I shall make our nations allies. Thank you, Petra. I am looking forward to it. The clashing of axes could be heard in the training grounds, interspersed with the yelling of a young man as he swung his axe with all his might. Yet, even as he did, his opponent was able to block all his attacks with her own axe. Even without her shield, it was clear she was far more skilled with the heavy weapon than he was. Even so, he wouldn't give up, especially when he still had his secret weapon. With a loud yell, he swung his axe, a flame bursting over its head as he aimed to disarm his opponent. A loud clang was his answer, as well as a heat far stronger than he was used to as his opponent met his axe with hers, her weapon also coated in fire. Ah, I was saving that up and you just have it too. Casper complained, pulling back as he began to pant. You do remember we have the same professor, right Casper? We also both share the same affinity, Edelgard asked with a raised eyebrow. Right, I kinda did forget about that second part, Casper admitted, a bit sheepishly. But you know, that was pretty cool. I can already see it. You, the professor, and I, hunting down bandits in the night, only for our weapons to light up the darkness. It'll look so cool. I see you're the same as ever, Casper. Hey, that's not true. I'm way stronger now. Casper argued. Well, that is true at least. Glad you agree. So what's up? You have something important to talk about, right? That I do. I'm surprised you realized it. Is it? I mean, it was pretty obvious something was up. You never really asked me to spar and the way you fought was different. Crossing his arms, Casper thought for a moment. It was like you were the professor. Yeah, like you were testing me or something. I must admit, I didn't expect you to pick up on that. Of course I would. If there's one thing I know, it's fighting. That you do, Edelgard said with a smile. Caspar, I will become emperor at the end of the month. Once I ascend to the throne, I intend to rid Adrestia of its current system of nobility. As the second son of your family, and someone without a crest, you have very low prospects within our current system. I believe you are capable of doing great things, and in my new system, your talents will have the opportunity to flourish. Do I have your support? Do you even need to ask? Of course I'll back you up, we're friends. Caspar declared with a smile. I mean, as long as I get to beat bad guys, I don't think there'll be much change in my life anyways. I must say, you may be remarkably simple at times, but it is surprisingly refreshing. You're welcome? I think. Caspar said, getting Edelgard to laugh. Linhard, how is it that whenever I track you down, you're always sleeping? That feels like it's more your fault than mine, Linhard grumbled from beneath the book he'd laid over his face, his back flat against the grass beneath him as he relaxed in the shade of a tree. Especially since you're waking me up. Can you please get up so I can discuss something with you? Edelgard requested, not wanting to get into an argument. If this is about you being the emperor and doing away with the nobility, sure, go ahead. I have no interest in taking on any noble duties. She sighed. Why do you already know what I'm about to ask you? Did you think Caspar would actually refrain from telling me? He asked, moving the book on his face so he could give Edelgard a skeptical glance. Well, I suppose that is my fault. Quite. Anyways, on to more important stuff. I actually came to an astounding breakthrough in my research, Linhard said, sitting up. I think the professor's crest might be artificial. Linhard, I don't have dash, what did you say? Once his words settled in, Edelgard felt her heart stop for a moment. Perhaps artificial might not be the right word for it. It might be more accurate to say that I don't think she was born with it, Linhard continued, muttering to himself. I've been studying the samples she gave me and to describe it. Crests are inherently magical even if the people who might have one aren't skilled at it. Even so the magic weaves its way into their very being, but when I study the professor, it feels more accurate to say the magic is over her, rather than a part of her. You could say it's like cooking oil and water in a sense. That. Linhard, how certain are you about that? If I were to have another sample, I suppose I would be able to tell. As fascinating as the professor is, only having one subject to study means I can't compare her to anything else. Maybe if Lysithea actually let me study her, I might have an idea, but as it stands that's my limited hypothesis. Lysithea. Oh, yes, it's quite fascinating. I had a hypothesis that she has two crests, and after some carefully worded phrases, she revealed to me that she did. That being said, she is being quite rude in not allowing me to study her. Edelgard sighed. Linhard, I know you tend to ignore social niceties, but even you should be able to understand why a young girl would be put off by your requests to study her. Hey, my interest is purely academic. All I want to know is how she came to have two crests. I probably wouldn't need more than a blood sample to get started. It should also be obvious that there are very few people who would willingly give their blood to someone upon request. Particularly when that someone is a fellow classmate and not a medical professional, and especially when that classmate has a history of hemophobia. Fine, I see your point. Well, what about you then? Would you be willing to help with my research? Edelgard paused, then frowned at Linhard. Is that meant to be a request to study my crest then? Both of them, yes. I do recall that you had brown hair once upon a time, Edelgard. Add in how you and Lysithea seem to have bonded lately, and it's not too hard to put things together. Loss of pigmentation in the hair, stunted growth, strength that exceeds what a minor crest holder should have, albeit magical for her and physical for you, I doubt I need to go on. He propped his head up on a hand, an actual glimmer of interest in his eyes as he looked at her. So, are you willing to aid in my research? Perhaps. My assistance depends on two conditions though. He sighed, but nodded, before gesturing for her to continue. First, I want you to report to me on whatever you discover about the professor. If our circumstances are similar, she shook her head. Never mind. Just make sure to share your findings with me. That does sound annoying, but I guess I could just turn over my notes as reports, but then I actually have to write them so you can understand, he sighed again. Sounds like a pain, but sure. Please tell me the second condition isn't anything too strenuous. It may or may not be. What I want to ask is that you look into if it's possible to remove a crest. That request made Linhard sit up, the glimmer of interest turning into outright fascination. Ah, I see, so a crest can be added then, and if that's the case, why not removed too? All right, Edelgard, you have a deal. Edelgard rapped her knuckles against Bernadetta's door while leaning close, listening for the startled squeak the shy girl almost always let out when someone came to call on her. Ah. And sure enough, there it was. You P. Professor? Oh, or is it Ingrid? P. Please don't break my door again if it's Ingrid. Well, that was concerning to hear. No, it's Edelgard. Edelgard. Are why you still upset about me following you around? I am sorry. I'm not upset, Bernadetta, we already talked about, she sighed. May I come in? It feels awkward to speak to you through a door. Oh, okay. A moment later, Edelgard heard the door unlock, and a small scurrying as Bernadetta backed away. Letting out a quiet sigh, she opened the door to find Bernadetta standing in the middle of the room. Well, she wasn't huddled in the corner of her room, so that was good at least. Hello, Bernadetta. What exactly was that about Ingrid breaking your door? Oh, it's nothing. She fixed it, so it's all good. You, unless she's angry she had to fix it, and she sent you to deal with me. She did no such thing, and I certainly wouldn't attack you because someone else broke your door, Edelgard stated. I actually came by to talk about something important. Is this revenge for letting the professor get stabbed at the start of the year? I knew that would come to haunt me. Bernadetta, please, calm down, nothing bad will happen to you, I swear, Edelgard assured, trying to speak softly. I will be claiming the throne of Adrestia soon, and I wish to have your support. Why you will? Bernadetta asked, completely surprised. I mean, shouldn't you be asking my dad? He is the minister and all. Bernadetta, I am aware of what kind of person your father is, he will have no position in the empire I will create. As soon as possible, I shall have him arrested. Why you will? Bernadetta asked, sounding very hopeful. Yes, I intend to make sure no one like him will ever be able to rise to power again, and once I do away with the nobility, it shall be that much easier. Well, that does sound nice, but why do you want my support? If I am being honest, if this had been at the start of the year, I might not have. Yet you proved my initial assumption of you quite wrong, Edelgard said with a smile. Time and time again, you fought bravely in battle, despite your fear. Despite what you might think, you are a friend of mine, and I want you supporting me when I am emperor. Okay. But wait, if you arrest my father, is he going to be put under house arrest or something? Until he is properly charged for his crimes, most likely. Though if you would like, you are more than welcome to stay in Inber until he is sent away, Edelgard allowed, before smirking. I'm sure Hubert will be more than happy to show you around the palace. To Edelgard's satisfaction, Bernadetta actually did turn red instead of turning the teasing around on her like Dorothea would. Do you think he would? That response was a little unexpected though. I mean, since he's so much scarier than everything else, he'll make sure nobody tries to mess with me, alright? Heh. He most certainly would, Edelgard agreed, feeling a smile come to her face at the thought of her intentionally intimidating retainer playing bodyguard to the shy Lady Varley. Entering Abyss was never a pleasant thing for Edelgard. Though it was far better lit and much more spacious than the dungeon she was once trapped in, the memories it trudged up were far from pleasant. Even so, she made the occasional journey down to read from the Shadow Library, or, in this situation, secure more allies. Hello, Constance, Happy, Edelgard greeted her housemates, the two lounging in the makeshift dormitories the Ashen Wolves had made long ago. Hey, Eddie, Happy lazily greeted as she laid on her bed. "Oh, Your Highness, to what do we owe the pleasure of you visiting?" Constance said, immediately standing up. "Is this perhaps about restoring my house?" "In a sense, it does involve your house," Edelgard started, getting Constance to perk up. "The main thing I want to speak about is that I shall soon be ascending the throne of Adristria." "Oh, forgive my impertinence, Your Majesty." Constance apologized, eyes widening. "I am not emperor yet, Constance." "It also wasn't the main thing I wished to speak about," Edelgard stated, locking eyes with her. "Perhaps in another time, your prowess would have surely returned your house to its status as nobility, but once I become emperor, I intend to do away with the nobility system entirely." Blinking in surprise, Happy sat up as Constance stiffened. "What was that, Edelgard?" Constance asked, frowning. "I intend to set a system of merits, one in which anyone can achieve recognition and greatness for their ability. I came down here to see if you two would be willing to support me." Constance's mouth thinned while she seemed deep in thought. "So, I feel like I need to point out, didn't the church help set up the nobility?" Happy asked, getting Edelgard's attention. "Won't that piss them off? Even if the goddess herself were to demand it of me, I would not change my mind." "Well, I don't care for the church, so I'm all up for pissing them off," Happy said, before glancing at Constance. "What about you, Coco?" "I see. So you wish to establish a system in which ability is more important than blood. Well, in that case, I have nothing to worry about," Constance stated, laughing loudly. "My magic prowess is unmatched, so I shall easily thrive under your regime." "Are you certain?" Edelgard asked. "You have been spending this entire time attempting to restore your house, have you not?" "And I shall. I imagine in your new system, you shall still have need of those to take care of territories, do you not? In that case, I shall prove to you that I am worthy of such a role. Be it through nobility or ability, my family name shall get the recognition it deserves," Constance boasted. "Though I must admit, I would have preferred you told me beforehand so I was not making a fool of myself trying to restore my house to its former status of nobility." "I would not say that," Edelgard said, "though I did have an interest in one of your spells. If I remember correctly, you have one that can change someone's hair color." "Of course. And I have fully worked out all the kinks it once had. Would you be able to change my hair color to brown, if just for a moment?" "That I can. Would you like to have a seat while I grab a mirror?" Constance asked, and Edelgard nodded as she sat down. Moments later, Edelgard stared at her reflection in the mirror. She saw a normal-looking girl looking back at her. One who didn't carry her burdens. "Gotta say, you look good, Eddie," Happy complimented. "Thank you," Edelgard said, softly smiling. "Hey Coco, would you mind if I borrowed Eddie for a sec?" That made her pause, glancing at Happy, who looked oddly thoughtful. "Whatever for?" Constance asked. "Just a thing that popped into my head that I want to talk to her about. Promise it won't take too long." "Very well, though I will request that you inform me if there is anything that might concern." Yeah, I'll tell you if it's an important thing." Constance huffed at her girlfriend's dismissal, but left the two alone as Edelgard raised an eyebrow at the redhead. "What do you wish to discuss? When you were a kid, did you ever get grabbed by a magic lady that ran experiments on you?" Edelgard blinked. Of all things she could have expected her to say. "No, I was not experimented on by a magic lady." "Did something like that happen to you?" "Yup. Did you think me summoning monsters whenever I sighed was a natural thing?" "Ah." Edelgard took a breath. For some reason, she found herself smiling. "I wish we had spoken earlier. It seems I keep finding people I have something in common with at this monastery. Does that mean, no, wait, I think I get it. Little Thea's also like us, huh?" She blinked. "Little Thea?" "Yup. You know, since Dororo's big Thea." Edelgard tried not to giggle. Something about the blunt manner Happy said that just tickled her sense of humor in a truly absurd way. "You shouldn't let Lysa Thea hear you call her that," she would most certainly take it the wrong way. Alright, good to know for the future. Mallow. Mallow. Yeah, you know, short for marshmallow. She kinda reminds me of one and she likes sweets, right? Your reasoning astounds me, Happy. So you agree then, nice. Edelgard didn't laugh, but she did let out an amused huff. Why don't we get back to this magic lady you talked about? Can you tell me anything about her? Oh, right, well, she has like, peachish hair and huge tits. Edelgard wasn't going to ask why that was what stuck out to her. Did you hear a name? Cleo something. Cleobulus. Right, that was her name. Well, from what I know, I wasn't experimented on by her, but by one of her associates. While I am unsure who she disguised herself as, I can assure you, I will deal with her in time. Until then, I am actually planning on working in ways to rid our bodies of what these people have done to us. Your own affliction may be different from mine, but would you be okay with staying in Inver so you could potentially be cured? Yeah sure, I'm good with that, Happy agreed with a shrug. I was planning to follow Coco anyway, so this just gives me another reason to head there. Gotta say, I didn't think I would have a chance to sigh freely again. I owe you one, Eddie. You really don't, especially since I can't guarantee I can fix this. Still, if I don't pay you back, Coco will probably get all huffy. I'd probably need to talk to Coco, Dororo, and Bibi first if I offered to kiss you. Huh. That certainly caught Edelgard off guard. Leaving aside Constance, why would you need to talk to Dorothea or the professor? Aren't you dating them? What gave you that idea? And why do you think I would be dating both of them? I am not, promiscuous. Okay. Not sure what that has to do with anything. I mean, the people back in my village were pretty open about stuff. Besides, don't you emperor types usually have multiple wives? Edelgard's face went scarlet before she let out an exasperated huff. Why did people keep bringing that up? That doesn't mean, I don't have time to argue with you. If you want to talk about our mutual experiences later, then I will be fine with that, but if you just want to tease me then I think we better end this conversation here. Sure, alright. See ya, Eddie. Say hi to Dororo and Bibi for me. Edelgard grimaced before walking off, trying to ignore the heat on her face. She really needed to find a way to handle teasing better. Soon after walking into the stables, Edelgard quickly found who she was looking for as she spotted Marianne gently brushing her horse's mane. Clearing her throat, Edelgard tried to get her attention without spooking the girl. Oh, Edelgard, hello, Marianne greeted, turning around to face her. Did you come to check on the horses? I was actually looking for you, Marianne, she replied, before holding up a hand, not for any nefarious reason. I am neither angry at you nor am I here on behalf of someone who most likely isn't angry at you either. I see. Marianne gave her a confused look. That is, good to know. You what did you want then? I was hoping to speak with you about, towards the end of this month, I intend to travel back to Inver and take the throne as the new emperor. I have been speaking with my fellow classmates on this matter, and I felt you should be aware as well. Oh, I see, why? Why tell me, I mean. I'm not an Adrestian noble, I do not see why you would want to tell me about it. Well, you are still my classmate, and I would like to let you know what is happening. That, and you are still the heir of House Edmund. As the heir to one of Leicester's noble houses, are you doing all right? Edelgard asked as she noticed Marianne shrinking back. Sorry, I don't think, I am aware of my position, but I don't think I can help you. I can't promise any help from my father and, wouldn't be useful to you. Perhaps I misspoke, I am not seeking any aid from your father. I know not what man he is, but I do know who you are, Edelgard said, being careful with her words. I also know that your crest has caused you many problems. Not simply because of the superstitions surrounding it, but also how people view crests. Edelgard? Marianne asked, trembling a bit as she listened to Edelgard's intense, determined voice. I intend to create a nation free of the crest system, she stated, immediately earning a gasp from Marianne. Long have people suffered because of these blessings, whether they have them or not. So I do not want your father's support. I want the support of Marianne, someone who suffered under this system because of something out of her control. That, why you, the church. Even if I have to become an enemy of the world, I shall fight until we are free from this tyranny, Edelgard stated, her gaze unwavering even as Marianne was unable to meet hers. If you do not wish to support me, then I understand. Even so, I promise you that I shall make a world where you do not need to suffer. How are you so sure of yourself? Marianne asked. A long time ago, I used to be quite pious myself, fully believing in the church and its ideals. Yet, despite my faith, neither the church nor the goddess protected my family or I. If the goddess does exist, then I am not favored by her. For the sake of my family, and for anyone else who has suffered, I had to remain strong. Taking a deep breath, Marianne finally met her gaze. I want to see the world you'll make. I can't promise my father will help, but if you can really do all that. I promise I will, even if history remembers me as a villain, I swear I will change this world, Edelgard said, before extending her hand. Staying quiet, Marianne hesitantly raised her hand, before grabbing onto hers, silently giving her support. That was all of them. She had convinced everyone. She was even able to get someone on her side when it came to going against the Crest system. It was going to take time. She knew it would take time to realize her goals, to guarantee that her friends would not only support her fight against the nobility in Adrestia, but against the whole of Fodlan's corrupt systems. She had to make sure to fully consolidate her power in the Empire before she could declare war against the Church, but when the time came, she hoped she would be able to convince them again. Ferdinand, how many times do I have to say this? You have to make sure to match the pace of your partner. Pausing in surprise, Edelgard turned her head to find Ferdinand and Flayn in the middle of dance practice in the gardens. My apologies Flayn, I have never actually danced with someone whose stature is so different from mine, Ferdinand admitted, frowning as he looked down at his shorter classmate. Especially someone who seems to prefer far more traditional dances. I was simply unaware that they performed different dances. It had been so long since I've been to the Empire, so most of my knowledge comes from books I have read. No need to worry, that is why we are practicing. Ferdinand stated before noticing Edelgard. Oh, Lady Edelgard, hello. Hello Ferdinand, Flayn. I was unaware you two were practicing on your own. Oh, that was my idea. Since we were both the runner-ups in the voting, I thought it would be fun to practice together. Flayn said with a smile. Yes, though I might not have been chosen to be the representative, I fully intend to be dazzling at the ball. Why, I would not be surprised if my entire night is busy with one request after the other. Ferdinand boasted, before pausing. Oh, but I'm sure you have something important to talk about with Flayn. If you'll excuse me, I'll give you some time alone. Ferdinand and he had already left. Oh, what did you need to speak about, Lady Edelgard? Flayn asked. Well, perhaps she should tell her something to keep up appearances. I am planning on leaving the academy soon to be crowned the Emperor of Adrestia. I have been letting my housemates know. Oh, that is a surprise to hear, Flayn said, before frowning. And a bit saddening if I am being honest. I am sure you will be a wonderful emperor, but it is sad to know you'll be leaving soon. It has been quite some time since I've had friends, so I was very glad at being able to join the Black Eagles. So to know you won't be here, well, I suppose it would be far too selfish to ask if you could stay. That was certainly not what she expected. I must admit, I wasn't sure what to make of you joining our class. Especially after the incident with your kidnapping. Though you have certainly surprised me, I certainly didn't expect you to get involved with Hubert's scheme during the Battle of Eagle and Lion. Haha, yes, it was certainly quite fun. I've had so many new experiences since joining the class, and I'm glad I've been able to, Flayn said, smiling. I'm glad that you were my house leader, I shall miss you when you're gone. I doubt I will be able to journey to the Empire anytime soon, but I hope we can remain friends. Yes, that sounds nice, Edelgard allowed, unsure of if she was lying or not. She knew what type of person Flayn was, in regards to her being a Nabatean, though she couldn't be sure how much of her persona was a facade. Though, considering that, she couldn't help but think of how her initial impression of Shay as a complete idiot actually turned out to be right. Great. Then I will make sure to write. Flayn declared, still smiling brightly. It was difficult to believe such a guileless girl could potentially be over 1,000 years old, though she wasn't that good at hiding it either. Flayn, if I may ask, do you and your brother have some distant relation to the Archbishop? Edelgard decided to ask. Yeah? What do you mean? She asked, poorly hiding the truth. I am simply thinking, the professor mentioned to me once that the Archbishop saw her mother as a daughter. While I'm not sure if they were blood-related or not, that would mean you and the professor are family, no? A look of realization dawned on her. Am I related to the professor? Flayn asked herself, completely blowing her cover. Not that she realized it. Oh, that is wonderful news. Maybe she should follow instinct and think Flayn really was an innocent girl, even if she were a Nabatean. Chapter 85, The White Heron Cup. Geralt let out a slow sigh as he leaned back in his seat. He never liked doing paperwork to begin with, especially with how his aches tended to act up after writing for a while, but now after everything that happened, he felt an ever-growing desire to just retire outright. He was old, he should get to just relax and spend what days he had left with his family, but, no, he had his obligations. Important obligations too. At the moment, the paperwork stacked on his desk had to do with the church's investigations into what was being called the Agarthan Order, Rhea's name for the supposed cult of dark mages that had infiltrated the monastery. Since Tamash had apparently been a different man entirely, that disturbed creep called Solon, there was a push to do some internal investigations into the church staff in addition to the Knight's external investigations into possible places these cultists might be hiding. The problem was, the church had a whole lot of staff and there was a big question of how they could even try to test for infiltrators. One idea was to see if the clergy members could indeed cast faith-based spells properly, out of some assumption that any heretics would lack the ability to because they didn't have faith in the goddess. It sounded like horseshit to Geralt, but he didn't have much to go off of himself. Well, he did have some ideas. Realistically, the only person from that fight he could look into was the sole survivor, Bias. The one who hit Shay. Working off the idea of looking into her specifically, he would want to look for a woman who had an affinity for fire magic. He had no idea of how old she was, what she might look like, or even if she had disguised as someone to begin with, but if he assumed she was someone who worked with Tamash/Solon and came to the church in the same time frame as him, Then his door opened, pulling him away from his thoughts. Hey Geralt, are you busy? Catherine asked, the blonde knight entering pretty casually. Just with paperwork. Why, what's up? Lady Rhea wants to see you. I think it's mainly about the security for the ball that's coming up, since there's some concern that something big might happen again. Well, I can understand that concern. Just because it's been quiet lately doesn't mean it's going to stay that way, he agreed, before pushing himself up from the desk. All right, I'll go chat with her. Before you go, mind if I ask you something? He raised an eyebrow at the younger knight, who seemed kind of awkward, for some reason. Sure, what is it? Well, it's just, there's this rumor that's been going around, not that I take stock in those kinds of things, but, tell me if this is too much to ask, but your late wife, Citrai, right? Was she, Lady Rhea's daughter? Geralt paused, then frowned. You know, that question raises a lot of questions. The first one being, why are there rumors about my wife? That's kind of the thing. They're not really about your wife, exactly, they're about Professor Byleth. Alright, now he was confused and concerned. And why are there rumors about Byleth? There were rumors about her since she got here, Captain, since there's that whole thing about a random mercenary from out of nowhere getting made the new professor, she explained. As for the new rumors, they're kind of an explanation for why that might be. That being that people are saying Byleth is Rhea's granddaughter. Geralt pinched the bridge of his nose. Who's saying that, and why? Apparently it started with some of the students, before spreading to the staff. And well, You know how Manuela is when she's drunk. I know Citrai and Ria were close, but if they were related she never told me. As far as I'm aware she was just an orphan taken in by the monastery. And sure, Geralt might not have kept the closest eye on Ria, but he was sure he would have noticed if she had a kid, though, that was back when she'd gone by Thea and faked her death so Ria could take over. Was the gap big enough for her to have a kid? Citrai did kind of resemble Ria, there were definitely differences in how they looked, but, though, who would be the father then? He didn't think she had anyone she was into like that, at least that he noticed, and she really wasn't the type to have a one-night stand. At least, he didn't think she was. You're thinking about it, huh? Geralt paused, then frowned at Catherine. So do you want to know because of your crush on her or what? Just because I worship her doesn't mean I have a crush on her. She denied as her face flushed. Geralt couldn't help but sigh and feel sorry for Shamir. Well, I'm not going to say yes. Mainly because I don't think it matters if she is or isn't, Geralt said as he sighed. Well, I'm just saying, it would explain why she puts so much focus on her. I suppose. It still was difficult to think of Ria as trustworthy, but, she hadn't attempted anything towards Byleth at all. She might have been pushy at the start, though that could easily be explained. All right, well, sorry to take your time, Catherine apologized, nodding to him before she left. Letting out a sigh, Geralt made the quick journey to the audience chamber. Hello Geralt, I hope you are doing well today, Ria greeted as Seath gave a nod at his arrival. As fine as I can be. Gotta say, it's been a while since I've had to do something fancy like protecting a ball, Geralt responded. Yes, it's a bit of a change up for us as well, Seath stated. The grand ball is a reward of sorts for the students, so we tend not to have a heavy guard presence around to help keep their minds off of things. Even so, we must make sure to keep them safe. While the building they'll be using for the ball itself will be monitored by the professors who are chaperoning, we need to make sure to have a patrol nearby at all times, Ria added. I trust you've been able to properly plan things out. I have, though I hope neither of you two mind if I have my own men pick up some of the slack, Geralt replied. With all those nights you're having going around, we're a bit low on men. I shall make sure your men are properly paid for their assistance, Ria said with a smile. Though I apologize for not being able to provide enough knights, the threat of the Agarthans is not one we can ignore. Hopefully we hear back from the knights soon, Seath added. As it stands, the continent of Fodlan is quite large, so it shall take some time for us to be able to find any clues to the Agarthan order. Perhaps if we had a lead. I'm not sure how much it'll help, but they're after Shay, right? We found her in Alliance territory, so maybe that's a start. Geralt suggested. She said she lived in Ordelia territory with her mom. It would, if only things weren't tense in the Alliance as it is, if only the great houses actually asked us for assistance rather than claim they can handle it themselves. Seath sighed. Regardless, we'll keep that in mind. Perhaps we should try investigating the territory bordering Phlegethon and Ordelia. It is as good a lead as any, Ria agreed before the door opened, getting their attention. Oh, there you are, Captain Geralt, Flayn greeted with a smile as she walked in. Flayn. Did you need something? Seath asked, a bit surprised to see his sister. I just came by to inform Captain Geralt that the White Heron Cup is about to begin. Professor Byleth volunteered to dance with the students during the cup, so I wanted to come by and see if you wanted to watch. She did. Now that definitely surprised him. I didn't know she liked dancing. She's been helping everyone practice for the ball and has been having fun, so I suppose it's not that much of a surprise. Flayn said with a smile. Supposedly she even went to get a special outfit for the cup. My, she certainly is giving it her all, isn't she? Ria asked with an amused smile. I don't suppose it would be much trouble if I went along as well, would it? Oh, of course no, Lady Ria. What about you, brother, do you want to watch as well? I suppose if I must. Despite many of the students' trepidations when it came to the White Heron Cup, it was still an event many loved to watch. As such, it was no surprise that all the students, as well as some staff and knights, were there to watch. Hey Dad, over here. Shay called out, waving over to Geralt as he entered the reception hall. Hey Shay. Looks like you are not dancing today. Ha, nah, dancing isn't for me. I mean, I'd probably completely rule if I did go for it, but I figure I should give everyone else a chance to dance, she replied with a grin. And that includes Em here. Reaching over, Shay pulled over the Adrestian. Hey, don't pull me. Come on Em, just letting you meet my dad, don't think you two ever met. No, I don't think we have. Nice to meet you. Gerald said, greeting the noble, who craned her head up to look at him. For a brief moment, she squinted her eyes. Are you sure your sister is related to this guy? He's huge compared to her. She takes after my wife. Oh, I guess that makes sense. Emily said, before scowling as Shay mussed her hair up. Sorry about her dad, she can be kinda abrasive, Shay apologized as Emily tried to push her away. Though before Gerald could say anything else, they heard Eloise speak up, announcing the beginning of the White Heron Cup, which he would also be judging alongside Manuela and Shamir. Gerald let out a bit of a chuckle as he heard Catherine congratulate her partner on the position, getting the archer to scowl. Now, as for our representatives, we have Dorothea from the Black Eagles, Yuri from the Blue Lions, and Emily from the Golden Deer. Eloise announced as the three students walked out to the middle of the reception hall, the former two looking quite confident, while the latter was unable to keep the frown off her face. Which only deepened as her class was the loudest when it came to cheering. As for who our wonderful participants will be dancing with, we have Professor Byleth who has volunteered to be the students' partners as they perform. I'll do my best, Byleth stated with a nod, and a pump of her fist, though for most of the students they focused more on her attire. Specifically that of a dancer's attire, which meant she received a lot of staring, most of whom tried to look away. Aside from the Gautier kid who blatantly ogled. Starting things off will be the Black Eagle House. Eloise announced with Dorothea smiling at Byleth as they both began to dance. Despite her words, it was clear Byleth was still inexperienced compared to Dorothea, since she did her best to lead but almost stumbled before Dorothea caught her. Perhaps we should switch roles, Professor? Not that I doubt you, but I'd rather you not end up falling as you try to lead, Dorothea suggested, quiet enough that no one else heard over the din of the music and talking. Nodding in return, Byleth steadied herself. With that the two changed roles, with Dorothea taking the lead, slowing her pace down to be in step with Byleth. Now moving much smoother, the pair danced together, perfectly in sync. There we go, Professor. Much better, no? Yeah, your movements are easy to follow, thank you, Byleth praised with a small smile. No need to thank me though, I would like to tell you that I'm planning on inviting Edelgard to the ball. Oh, that's great. Glad I could help. Dorothea couldn't help but giggle at her earnest response. Of course, though you should make sure to have a dance with her as well, I'm sure she'll love that. Well, I'm supposed to be a chaperone, but I guess one dance won't be bad, Byleth agreed as they slowed down, coming to a halt as the music ended. What a wonderful performance. One that will be hard to follow. Eloise praised with a grin. For the sake of not being biased, I'll just say that was splendid, Manuela followed up. Good work on taking the lead there. You saw a problem and quickly fixed it, Shamir finished, giving the two a nod. Giving her student a thumbs up, Byleth smiled at her while Yuri walked up. She nodded at the Blue Lion, then the two clasped hands as they began to dance. Almost immediately, it became clear that while Yuri was indeed a skilled dancer, he didn't make much effort to keep pace with Byleth. The teacher plainly had a hard time keeping up as Yuri showed off. Where Dorothea was able to catch her before she stumbled, Yuri instead chose to catch her as she tripped over her feet, making it seem as if he was dipping her down. And here I thought I'd be difficult to sweep you off your feet, Yuri teased, making Byleth huff in response. Well, that was quite the exhilarating performance. Eloise praised, still sounding impressed. That it was, seems our Blue Lion here is quite the leading man, Manuela commented, before affecting a more critical gaze, though I must say, a dance is a duet, not a solo. It was original, but had a lot of wasted movements, Shamir noted. Shrugging in response, Yuri rejoined the Blue Lions, who largely seemed grateful that it was over with. With that, it was time for the final student, Emily, who was notably tense as she walked up. And Gerald knew his daughter well enough to see her tense up too, before trying to relax herself as they danced. "I didn't know you could dance," Byleth said as she led the noble. "As if it's hard, it's just footwork, and like you said, I'm light on my feet," Emily grumbled, though she seemed to want to keep the dance simple compared to the other two. And it certainly was a far more simple dance with nothing of note occurring, aside from Emily rushing back to her class as soon as the dance was over. That was a noteworthy performance. "You did well out there, make sure to keep practicing and you'll shine in no time. Good footwork." Emily scoffed at the praise, putting on a show of indifference, though it was pretty easy to see the slight flush on her cheeks from the praise, which turned outright red when a cheery Raphael gave her a pat on the head. Which also seemed to be a cue for the rest of the deer to start praising her performance too, though Claude and Hilda seemed to be deliberately trying to fluster her while the rest were being more genuine, with Leonie also giving her a pat on the back and Shay outright hugging her, earning a yelp from the shorter girl. "And there we have it, folks," Alois declared once the dances were done, projecting his voice to be heard through the hall. "That was some excellent work from all our participants, and a good job from our professor. But unfortunately, we can only have one winner today, and I think me and my fellow judges already have our choice of winner here." Judges. Well, while I would hate to be accused of bias, I genuinely can't vote for anyone other than the Black Eagle House's very own Dorothea Arnault after seeing her stunning performance. Manuela praised, smiling brightly at her protege. "Yeah, I have to give it to the Eagles too," Shamir agreed. "And there we have it. With her stunning start that stole all of our hearts, the winner of this year's White Heron Cup is Dorothea." Gerald clapped along with the rest of the crowd, though not nearly as wildly as some of the people in attendance. Even some of the quieter members of the Black Eagles began to cheer, aside from the Vestra kid, who still clapped. Dorothea herself seemed quite proud as she mentioned something about using this win to bolster her career. "Congrats kid, you did great out there," Gerald said, approaching his kid and giving her a pat on the head. "It was mainly Dorothea," Byleth responded, watching while her student was surrounded by her classmates. "Right. Also, mind if I ask about the dress?" "Oh, the dancer outfit that's part of the prize looks like this. So I thought it'd be fun to wear it," Byleth explained, looking down at her dress. "Though apparently it's not what is usually worn during balls." "PFT, seriously By? Even I knew that," Shay teased as she walked up to her family, "it's gowns and stuff that usually get worn for fancy parties." Well, this technically is a gown, I think. Besides, Dorothea thought it looked good," Byleth replied, pouting a bit. "I'm sure she would," Shay said, chuckling, "just make sure to actually wear your normal clothes during the ball. Or something more formal. Actually, something more formal would definitely be better. I mean, I'm just a chaperone so I don't think I'll be dancing much." "You sure?" "Because I'm pretty sure Dorothea's bound to ask you. Unless Edelgard gets to you first." Shay grinned. "Heck, I wouldn't be surprised if you had a few more admirers willing to ask you after showing your stuff out there." "Oh, I'm glad they liked my dancing," Byleth said, not completely understanding what Shay meant. "Oh, I've been meaning to say, but I'll be leaving for a few days soon." "Is something wrong?" Gerald asked. "No, I just need to accompany Edelgard to the Empire for something important. We'll be gone for less than a week. Do you guys need any help?" Shay asked. "No, it's just something Edelgard needs some help with." Well, make sure to take care, kid," Gerald said, "must be important if it's something the princess has to do." "It is," Byleth responded, nodding. "Professor. Come on, we're going to go celebrate," Dorothea said, grinning as she grabbed onto Byleth's arm. "You too, Shay. Unless you want to mope about losing." "Hey, who said I was moping? Emily did great," Shay boasted, chasing the two as Dorothea dragged Byleth away. Watching his kids talking with all the students, Gerald couldn't help but let out a small sigh. It was different seeing them hang out with so many people their age, but it was a good different. "Hey, you're called the Blade Breaker, right?" Looking down, Gerald found Emily standing by him. "Yeah? Did you need something?" "Just wanted to ask if you would be up to training together. You're strong, right?" I am the knight captain, Gerald said, a bit amused. Good, then we can train later, she stated as if it was a matter of fact. Heh, sure. Now go on, you shouldn't be hanging around an old man like me, have fun with your friends. Gerald gently pushed her forward, clearly flustering her a bit before she huffed and walked towards the rest of the students. Well, the children certainly seem like they're having fun, Rhea remarked, a smile on her face as she approached Gerald. Yeah. I didn't think Byleth would like dancing so much. Yes, she did quite well. Heh, watching her, I could not help but think, Rhea sighed, her smile turning a little sad, my mother loved to dance. Gerald blinked. He'd never heard Rhea ever talk about her birth parents. Really, considering her secret, he was halfway convinced she'd been born directly from the goddess. Though the fact that she was thinking of her own family when looking at Byleth. Hey, Rhea, do you think of Byleth as family? Gerald asked. Rhea paused at the question, not entirely ready for that, especially as she immediately thought of Seath assuming she had a child of her own. I would not be opposed if she thought of me as family as well, Rhea said, being careful with her words. I see. Gerald took in a deep breath as he tried to take in the possibility that Byleth was Rhea's granddaughter. Did that mean she was his mother by marriage? That aside, I was planning on having dinner soon if you wished to join me. Oh, sure. I've only had some bread today, so I'm hungry. Gerald, you need to take proper care of yourself. I would think a captain of the Knight of Ceros would know better, Rhea chided, making Gerald pause at the mother-like tone she had there. Maybe, if he ever retired, he wouldn't stick around Garreg Mach. He was way too old to be babied. I must say, seeing you dance was quite thrilling, though if it was up to me, I would have given the win to that young Yuri boy. Your dance together looked quite exhilarating. Suthies said as Byleth entered her room, ready to retire for the night. Traitor. Just because I'm stuck with you doesn't mean I have allegiance to your house. Suthies huffed. Regardless, you must ensure on the night of the ball that you must dance the night away. If I cannot dance, then you must at least dance for me. Sure, Byleth agreed, going over to her desk to write in her journal before going to sleep for the night. Though as she did, she accidentally knocked over the box for the pendant. Frowning, she got down to pick it up, before noticing something had slipped behind her desk. Reaching over, she grabbed it, finding it to be an envelope, one that was unmarked. Oh? I wonder what this is, Suthies wondered as she floated closer. Guess I'll see, Byleth replied, opening it to find a letter. Dear Professor Byleth. First off, I would like to apologize for entering your room without permission and leaving this in here. I found it a tad too embarrassing to talk to you about this in person. I promise I won't touch anything in your room, well, unless it looks interesting. I kid, of course. Now then, as for what this letter is actually about, I wanted to ask if you would meet me up on the Goddess Tower on the night of the ball. It's something rather important I want to discuss, so I hope to see you up there. With love. It's not signed, Suthies noted. It's Dorothea's handwriting. Byleth said as she finished reading the letter. I wonder what she wants to talk about. Oh. Is there not that legend of two people meeting in the Goddess Tower to swear an oath together? Maybe this is a confession of love. No, that's not it, Byleth said, shooting that idea down. First off, she's dating Edelgard, or will be. Secondly, Manuela said the legend was about a man and a woman, so it doesn't make sense for two women to make a vow up there. Suthies sighed, before muttering something about a ridiculous child, which Byleth ignored. Rolling her eyes, Byleth tucked away the letter. She wasn't exactly sure what Dorothea would want to talk about, but whatever it was she would do her best to help. Maybe they were already planning to get married? Byleth couldn't help but frown. She wasn't sure why, but she almost felt disappointed for a moment there. Well, whatever. So long as her students were happy, she would be happy. Though it did raise a question of why Dorothea wanted to meet her at the Goddess Tower. Maybe she had something important to tell her? As Byleth mused to herself, Suthies watched her host with a mix of fond exasperation. How in the world did I end up with a girl who thinks only of others and never herself? Check the description for the links to the author.